Entering the Pat Mayo Experience.
Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog. PGA Championship research, trends, player picks, stat model, and a ranking of the best PGA Championships from the past 15 years. You good people out there, you smash the like to the episode, you sub to Mayo Media Network, and down in the comment section right now, I want you to give me your one single favorite long shot bet for the week at the PGA Championship. Who from the back of this field do you think has a chance to hoist the Wanamaker Trophy, aka the half Rory? When Rory hoists that thing up, it's like half of his body. It's kind of insane. That's a giant jug when we start to think about it. But if you want to jump around during the episode, Keith Stewart is going to be joining me. You can always hit the time codes for this to break down the course and the primary differences between this PGA Championship and the regular setup that we see for the former Wells Fargo Championship, now the Truist Championship, and maybe even the difference between the President's Cup in 2020 and the 2017 PGA Championship that was played at Quail Hollow. Plus, it's me, Cust, and Geoff bantering and bickering back and forth, doing a draft of the best PGA Championships from the past 15 years. I'd like to get your thoughts on that too. You rank the top 3 PGA Championships since 2010 and see if your list matches up with our list. And then we're going to do the deep dive. So again, just hit the description and find out where you need to jump around to for the spots that you want to go to. Reminder as well, code Mayo at Underdog right now will get you a deposit bonus of up to $1,000, a free pick in the Pick'em game, and you'll be able to draft the single round drafts underneath the drafts tab on Underdog. And there's some huge payouts out there. So if you got an in on these drafts and who's going to play well in certain rounds, use code Mayo, go sign up for Underdog, and go collect your bucks. All right? This year's PGA Championship is back for the first time in 8 years at Quail Hollow. This is why we're seeing the Philadelphia Cricket Club host the Truist Championship. It is, besides Pebble Beach, I think, and Torrey Pines, it's the only annual rotation course on the PGA Tour that we get to see as a major championship venue as well. We'll get more into the differences a little bit later on, but it's not that dissimilar from what we've seen year over year. You want guys who can bomb the ball, you got guys that can hit their long irons, and actually make a few putts. That is going to be the 3 critical elements this week, which really narrows the amount of players on the board. That's not to say someone like Denny McCarthy can go out and triple everyone else in putting and have a chance to win. That's just such an outlier that I don't want to start banking on that in terms of predictability. If you have players out there, someone like Harris English, for example, who just weirdly tends to play longer venues really, really well, despite the fact that he's not that long off the tee. Long tracks, tough tracks, Harris English, usually very good at those. Are any of the stats going to point to him? Not really, because that's not really what his game would tell you suits well for this particular course, but we've just seen it happen. So if you have a gut feel about a certain type of player that doesn't fit the exact mold that we want to, roll with those guys. If you're betting, they're going to be long shots. If you're playing DFS, they're going to be wildly underpriced and under-owned if you have that feeling. The chances are, when we've seen past Quail Hollow winners like Derek Ernst, for example, whatever happened to that guy? Well, he's probably off in a long drive competition somewhere because he absolutely mashes the ball. And even someone like Andrew Riviere Dalou. Andrew Liu, we hit him as first round leader here one year. He almost won. The guy can only hit the ball far. He has like no other skills in this game. He's not even in professional golf anymore, I don't think. So there is very clearly a path to success at Quail Hollow, and it is driving it a ton off the tee, which leads me to my 2 bets so far. I have 4 bets in so far, but I'm going to recommend 2. The other 2 I made about 3 months ago, and I'm not feeling as good about those ones anymore. Number 1, Bryson. Bryson is more than double the odds of Rory and Scotty, and I truly believe that Bryson is closer to that tier than he is to the tier behind him, which features guys like Xander, Justin Thomas. You can throw John Rahm into there if you want to. Morikawa, Ludwig Oberg. At least in terms of the betting board, he's lumped with those guys, not the guys at the very top. If there's one thing we know about Bryson, U.S. Opens and PGA Championships are where you want to bet him. He has played in 4 consecutive final groups between the Masters and LIV. He's only won one of those, but that was the last time out at LIV Korea, so he's just getting those reps, constantly putting yourself in an opportunity to go win a championship is how you end up winning majors. It took Rory 10 years in order to do that, but he was constantly there at the end. Sometimes it just takes one, you get yourself into a final group and you end up winning. Most of the time, you're going to need multiple reps with late Sunday tee times in order to win. And the best predictor of major championships, at least over the past 5 years, has been success at other major championships coming in. Bryson has 4 top 6 finishes in his past 5 major championships, including 3 top 4 finishes in his past 4 PGA championships. He's obviously playing great golf right now, and the difference between Bryson, Rory, and Scotty, if you're really going to break it down, is Rory and Bryson are about equivalent off the tee. Scotty's a bit more accurate, which should help a little bit here, but he is significantly shorter than both those guys. Scheffler is by far the best iron player of those 3. Bryson's short game is good. Rory's short game is good. Scotty's short game is excellent. And when you get on the greens, despite the fact that Scheffler is putting the ball well right now, and so is Rory, for that matter, consistently over time, it is Bryson who is the one that is the elite putter of the group. So if he can just hit his irons much better than he did at the Masters, because that was really his major downfall at Augusta, with not being able to hit approach shots. But generally speaking, very good with his irons. He just simply needs to be slightly better than average with his approaches, drive the ball like he normally does, putts the ball like he normally does, and chips the ball like he normally does, and he will be hoisting the Wanamaker Trophy. You can get him still at 14-1 right now. That's with our friends at CoolBet. I've made that bet. I'm in on it. I'm going with Bryson at the very top of the board. He's number 4 in the betting market right now, and I think that he should be closer to Rory and Scotty, as I mentioned, who are 4.5 to 5-1. So you're getting more than double the odds on Bryson than those 2 guys. You could bet the same amount of money on Bryson to win more than you could betting Scotty and Rory, which is kind of crazy to think about. So I think that he's just still undervalued, not necessarily in terms of his overall win probability. 14-1 is probably actually even inflated when you consider that there's 156 players in this field, but I just don't think that Rory and Scotty between them have almost a 50% chance to win this tournament. If you wanted to tell me that Rory, Scotty, and Bryson combined have around 50%, I'd find that a bit more believable. I still wouldn't be there in terms of how actual probability works, but I think that's a bit closer. So you're getting a better odds right now and better value with Bryson from the top of the board. Other than that, I'd go down to the bottom, and I'm not going to make this a live cast, but I bet Dean Burmeister for every live event anyway. He's going to be top 20 in this field in driving distance. He continues to churn out good results on live. Tends to play much better at easier courses because dude cannot putt to save his life, but he's a ball striking phenom. Right now, you can get him at 150-1. I played that with 8 places. So if he comes inside the top 8, I get 1/5 of those odds of 150. So we're going to be making out gloriously if that ends up being the case. So I like Dean Burmeister as my long shot. I want to hear your long shot down in the comment section for this show, or as an Apple review, or as a Spotify review. You punch that in for this particular episode, and you get into a special giveaway, which will be releasing later on this week. Let's talk about the course and the field a little bit. I mentioned there's 156 players. It is the only tournament left on the PGA Tour which has the top 70 and ties. Now, this is critical. It may not make a difference, this we know, in terms of what the cut line is, but generally at the PGA Championship, if you take a look at the top 65 in ties and the top 70 in ties, you get about a half a stroke of difference. So if you have one of the good years, you get an extra stroke on the field, which means more players are going to end up making the cut. So I was trying to think about this in terms of the to make the cut parlay, or even how you draft some of your DFS teams. It's a 156 player field, but 20 of those players are PGA professionals, got club pros who qualified for this tournament, the Michael Blocks of the world. I did see Justin Hicks is actually a PGA professional now. Dude was like good. I used to play this dude on DraftKings 11 years ago, and now he's a PGA professional. He is qualified for this tournament. So you have those 20 guys, and then you have another handful of guys, let's say 5 of the older champions who just aren't very good anymore, and then you really scan to the bottom of the field list this week, and there's just like 20 dead guys in this field. I mean, I had to go Google their names to make sure that they weren't actually creative players, that they're actually real people who were going to be on the course. So we'll take those 20, we'll take the 5 old dudes, and we'll take the 20 PGA Tour professionals. That's 45 players of 156. Let's say 5 of them make the cut. Well, now we're down to 120 players, and the top 70 in ties end up making the cut, which means probably what? 70 at least are going to make it. That probably means 75 to 80 are going to end up playing the weekend. So if you just take that number, let's take 75 and divide it by 120. That's 62.5. So around 62 to 65% of this field is actually going to make the cut, which means making the cut at the PGA Championship is more in tune with how it presents itself at the Masters when we run the same exercise between the old guys, the amateurs, and just like bad players at the back end of the field. Now that's top 50 in ties, it's top 70 in ties, but it's right around the same percentage. For example, there's 156 players in the US Open. It's only top 60 in ties for the US Open. That's 39.5%. Now, there's obviously dead players in that tournament as well, so you could probably take out 30 of the players that have no chance to make the cut. But the US Open is so hard that you do see some of these qualifiers and amateurs end up sneaking through from time to time. So it's not as many that are dead like they are at the Masters and the PGA Championship. So making the cut at the PGA Championship is a little bit easier than both the Open and the US Open, more like the Masters. Now, you're going to have your big name or two that's going to miss the cut, and it's going to screw up the 6 of 6 lineups and to make the cut parlay somewhere else. But this is a better opportunity to take that chance with someone a bit off the board, since more people end up making the cut on a percentage basis of the players that we're actually thinking about picking. I just want to give that some food for thought coming in as you start to craft your DFS strategy, or maybe look for alternate bets this week in the betting market. Additionally, we have Michael Kim and Justin Rose. They both WD'd from the Truist on Saturday. Now, is it because they were both in last place? Maybe. I just DM'd Michael Kim to ask him about it. He hasn't got back to me on it yet. But Justin Rose pulled out with a sickness. It said it was a back injury for Michael Kim. Michael Kim went out and played solo because Rose WD'd before the round. It sounds like Rose is going to be fine to play next week. He was just having a bad time in Philly. Probably wanted to get rested up and travel down south a little bit earlier to get himself just outside of Charlotte with Michael Kim. I don't know what's going on with him. I hear back injury. Obviously, Jason Day withdrew this week as well with a herniated disc. He might not play next week either. And he's under that former champion status. Plus, he does have qualification into this. And he is one of the few players that does present an interesting crossover opportunity if you're looking to mine some sort of comp courses. Keith and I discussed this a little bit later on, but because this is a major championship venue, you can make some different parallels. The green complexes here are a lot different than a lot of other courses. They're very unique to this course. I mean, very unique. It doesn't need to be said back to back. This I know. They're unique to this place. Very unique is just unique, in case you ever wanted to write that down. I'm freestyling here, so I'm going to say some stupid stuff from time to time and not be grammatically correct on a lot of this. But Torrey Pines, Bay Hill, Riv, and Quail Hollow have seen a lot of crossover success over time. The unique green complexes, they're very long, and they really do inherit an ability to have someone try to hit the ball a long, long way. Jason Day has won at Torrey Pines, he's won at Bay Hill, and he's won at Quail Hollow. Justin Rose is someone who has won at Torrey Pines and Quail Hollow over the years and has an immaculate track record at Bay Hill over the years. Rory, obviously, has won at Bay Hill, and he's won at Quail Hollow 4 times in his career, including the spot of his first ever win back in 2009. Ricky's first win was here as well. This used to be the big breakthrough course for a lot of people over time. Then Rory just kept winning it every second year kind of thing. Wyndham Clark got his first big win here as well, just before winning the US Open at LA Country Club 2 years ago at this point. But the other one is Riv. We've seen James Hahn! When James Hahn can win 2 career tournaments, one's at Riviera and one is at Quail Hollow, you know that there's probably some sort of link between those 2 places. There's others along that list as well, but that is the one that really sticks out for me when I start thinking about it. Max Homa is another one. He got his breakthrough win at Quail Hollow, ends up winning Riv, I believe the following year or the year after that. Probably not someone you want to take too much of a look at this week, although little bit of positive, baby steps of positive signs are coming for Max Homa right now. So those are the comp courses, those are the bets, and that is how the field and cut line is going to break itself down for Quail Hollow. Now, I want to talk about the course. At this major championship, Quail Hollow is playing 7,626 yards. That's about up 60 to 70 yards from what we saw at the Wells Fargo Championship last year. Remains a par 71. Poa Travalis overseed as the green type. Later on in the year, it's going to be Bermuda, but the Bermuda is still dormant right now. Keith and I will talk about that a little bit later on. 6,600 square foot green, 61 bunkers, 7 holes with water in play. The signature hole, number 17, is the deal breaker. It's the second toughest hole on the course. It owns an 8% double or worse rate because you got to clear that water in order to get there. And the major difference between this iteration of the PGA Championship for Quail Hollow and 2017 is going to be the grass type, as mentioned at this time of year. 2017, it was contested in August. Just after the renovation, the Bermuda was in full effect. This led to a completely baked out course, and that's why you ended up seeing all those short game specialists at the top of the board. Now it's in May, the similar time to when you normally see the PGA play at Quail Hollow, so it should lean back towards bombers, long irons, and putting. It's a championship course located in Charlotte. Quail Hollow is widely regarded as one of the premier golf destinations in Southeast United States. The course was originally designed by renowned golf architect George Cobb in 1961, but has gone on a bunch of renovations since, including the Tom Fazio in 1997 and the big one just before the 2017 PGA Championship. It's known for its challenging layout, tree-lined fairways, numerous water hazards, and the strategically placed bunkers, which require the precision shot making from distance. Strokes gained is always going to show approach as the biggest driver of success out of all the tee to green metrics at basically any course, but the gap between approach and off the tee is smaller than almost any other course on tour. Of the top 10 finishers per year over the past 5 years, they average almost 1/6 of a stroke off the tee per round and 8/10 of a stroke on approach per round. There are courses where approach is 3 times as much as driving. This is not one of those courses, and golfers need to be precise off the tee to avoid the thick rough and strategically placed bunkers, as mentioned, because of the narrow fairways, but distance has proven to be far more important than accuracy outside of that one major 8 years ago here, and conditions are going to be completely different. You're going to see a generic bomber pop up each year. I mentioned Derek Ertz. I mentioned Andrew Liu, but there's a bunch of them over the years that have found themselves near the very top of the leaderboard, and you'd be like, that's really strange because that guy's not overly good. All he can really do is compete in a long drive competition. It's not the only path. You're going to see a scattershot of shorter to average length players that still gain a bounty of strokes off the tee. Someone like Francesco Molinari historically, Sung J Im, Abraham Answer, Joel Damon. These players all spring to mind. They have plus accuracy. They have plus short games. Well, not so much with Answer, but they have plus around the green, or plus long iron game as well. And that's the common trait amongst the shorter hitters who've experienced the most success at this course, is to be able to control those long irons. All the par threes, well, 3 of the 4 are going to be incredibly long, so they're going to be over 200-yard iron shots to begin with. And over 50% of approach shots this week are going to come from beyond 175 yards, 31% from over 200 yards. It also has that weird crossover. Like I mentioned, Jason Day and Homa have both won at Torrey Pines. Day has also won at Bay Hill. Rory and Rose have won at Bay Hill, and they've all won here. Max Homa, James Hahn, as mentioned, and JB Holmes is the other one who's won at Riviera and Quail Hollow throughout the course of the year. But the biggest thing that you're going to watch out for is the Green Mile, the final 3 holes at Quail Hollow, and is the most difficult finishing stretch of any regular rotation PGA Tour course. Since 2003, there have been over 1,800 water balls on these 3 holes combined. Collectively, they've played almost a stroke over par on average in that time span. That is insane to think about. So just because someone is holding a lead coming down the stretch does not mean that they are going to end up collecting over $4 million in a prize and claiming a major championship. It is going to need to be precise off the tee in order to get this going. We even saw Rory a few years back when he ended up beating Abraham Answer at Quail Hollow to win his third Wells Fargo championship at the course. He just overcooked the ball. It wasn't even in the water. It was just unplayable on the left-hand side. He just ended up taking a drop. He knew he was up by 2. If he just makes bogey, he still ends up winning. And he did. It was not a problem. Maybe he was up by 3 at that point when I really think about it. But that's where we were at with Quail Hollow. I mean, the best putters from 0 to 5 feet and 5 to 10 feet. If you want to mimic what Xander did in his second place finish last year at Quail Hollow, then went on to win the PGA Championship, there's not a whole lot of great names up there. It's like English McCarthy and Ricky Fowler from 5 to 10 feet. You got Wacky Valimaki, Michael Kim, our guy. We'll see how his back is doing. And Sam Burns, you have those long par 4s. We'll dig in more to that in the research a little bit later on. But one thing that I did want to make mention of are the players who have improved the most and underwhelmed the most from proximity beyond 200 yards year over year. So from 2024 so far in 2025. Now, some of these players aren't in the field, but the best players, the biggest improvers with their long iron so far this year, Russell Henley is number one by far over Eric Van Rooyen. And Russell Henley fits that mold of Francesco Molinari and Sung Jae Im and Abe Answer. Shorter off the tee, but great everywhere else with their games, especially the long iron. Ludwig is up there, Seamus Power, Daniel Berger, Seb Straka, Jordan Spieth, Akshay, Scotty, Eckroat, and Steven Jaeger are the best. The worst players year over year who were good last year and are now losing strokes from that bucket, Lee Hodges, Keegan Bradley, Cam Young, Bezaden Hout, Keith Mitchell, Sam Burns, Rafael Campos, Morpheus, Patrick Fishburne, and Byung Hun An. Let's jump over to fantasynational.com to take a look at more in-depth stats into this field from the course. This is Quail Hollow, and if you want to get in on one of the best deals around right now, fantasynational.com/Mayo will get you 20% off. And if you get the monthly plan right now, you'll get PGA Championship through the US Open and all those great events in between, including the Canadian Open, which I will not necessarily be at, but I will be in Toronto in that time because we are doing a live show on the Saturday of the Canadian Open in Toronto at the Rec Room, a live version of Cust Corner with myself, Geoff, Rob, Cam, Gary, and everyone is going to be there. We hope to see you there as well. If you want to buy tickets, it's down in the description right now. It's in the afternoon on June 7th. We would love to see you in Toronto that week. Back to the course, Quail Hollow. When we're taking a look at it, you can see it's a pretty tough course, and the most difficult hole on the course being the very last hole, and the second most difficult hole being the second to last hole, the fourth most difficult being the third to last hole. That is the Green Mile for you. You got to buckle up when we get down to that. But let's just take a look, segmented-wise, how this course breaks itself down. You have the easy par 3, which is number 4. It's 184 yards, the shortest one on the course, and I'll probably play a little bit longer on some of the days for the PGA Championship. Then you have your two tough ones. You have number 17 and number 6. Number 6 is 250 yards. It has a 7% birdie rate, almost a 25% bogey rate. Very few doubles. It's easy to get up and down for bogey, at least, at that course if you end up missing the green. There's just not a lot of danger outside of missing the green, whereas on number 17, with the 8% double or worse rate, you find yourself in the water and you are absolutely cooked. The par 4s, there's a lot of them, and the average distance is 456 yards, but the most difficult are all going to be the ones that are beyond 450 yards. You see number 1, that's going to play over 500 yards this week. It's 495. Normally, they're going to add probably 30 yards to that, as we saw on the Flyover a little bit earlier. That's the 5th most difficult. Number 11 is 462. That'll play a little bit longer. That is the 3rd most difficult. If you can't beat up on these longer par 5s, you are going to be in a whole lot of trouble. Now, there are 2 easy ones that are out there. Easy-ish, let's say. Number 8 can be drivable. You don't see a lot of eagles on it, only 0.7%, but they might we've seen at the PGA Championship over time, they might give you a day or two for the field to be drivable. And there's 2 potentially drivable par 4s on this course. Number 8 and number 14. Number 14 is the easier of the 2. That's one with the water down the left-hand side, but if you can cook a draw into it, you can drive the green. I don't want to say no problem. It's a big carry to get it down there. And it does bring in some risk. You still bogey the hole 11% of the time versus, same as number 8, 11% of the time as well. That's a good drivable-ish par 4, where guys do take on some. It should be risk-reward. The problem is the reward isn't all that great. You can lay up to kind of the front of the green and just get up and down for birdie pretty easily. That is going to be the preferred route unless you overcook it and end up in the water on number 14. Although that doesn't happen as often as you'd think. And even if you do, it's still an up and down. Like if you, let's say, go at it and you overcook it to the left, and you end up in the water, you can still get up and down from par from there in order to do it. So it's not that big of a risk. It's more in tune, slightly more difficult than number 17 in Phoenix. The holes aren't really resembling that much of each other. The green on number 17 in Phoenix is incredibly difficult depending on the pin position. If the pin's at the front, just take dead aim at it. If you go in the water, you can chip it in for birdie if you want to. With the pins at the back, that becomes slightly more difficult, but you'd be crazy not to go for it because the penalty is just getting it up and down. If you have any sort of a short game, you are going to be fine in that regards. But the par 5 is where you need to beat up. And that's what we've seen historically over time at this course that really crowns a champion. And you have number 7, which is the second easiest, but the one with the highest eagle rate at right around 4%. But it does possess an 11% bogey rate as well, but a 41% birdie rate. It is the most risk reward of the par 5s. Then you have number 10. That is the most difficult of the par 5s. In fact, it actually plays more difficult on an annual basis than we see with number 14, that drivable par 4. 34% birdie rate. It's still not a hard hole. It plays well below par. The easiest hole on the course is number 15. So you do get that little bit of relief before going to the green mile, with 14 and 15 being 2 of the 3 easiest holes on the course. 2% eagle rate, almost a 50% birdie rate, very low bogey rate, only a 6% bogey rate, 0.7% double or worse rate for that. And we continue to scroll down. You can amend anything. Like I said, you 0.82 per round on approach, 0.57 for the top 10 finishers, and they're making a ton of putts. Around the green doesn't factor in as much. Of course, you can always chip yourself out of a tournament, but it's hard to chip yourself into a tournament. The around the green play here, it'll be a bit more difficult because of the longer rough than we see normally at Quail Hollow, but it's not going to be prohibited. And as we've seen with PGA Championships and US Opens over time, it actually is not the great around the green players who tend to come to the forefront. We saw that in 2017 because even if you were in the short grass, you needed to get the spin up and down. The greens are not going to be as fast and as firm as they were in 2017. They're going to be fast and firm, not that fast and firm, especially if there's a little bit of rain in the forecast, which we are seeing a little bit earlier in the week. Hopefully it doesn't turn out like Valhalla, where the entire place is a sponge. Sponge! I'll show you, sponge! That's what Valhalla did. Hopefully Quail Hollow doesn't do that to us, where guys can just go pin seek the entire time. But if it still plays fast and firm, around the green is important. It is not critical like some of the other stats. And as we go to the top 5 finishers, it becomes less important. Approach becomes more important. Better off the tee becomes more important. But you still need to retain how well you do on the greens. Again, that's why I like Bryson so much. And when you see your winners, big off the tee, big on approach, and make a ton of putts. It's going to be difficult to lose strokes putting here and truly contend for a major championship. We've seen it be doable, but it's not like Scotty is going to gain 20 strokes on the field with his ball striking like he did at the Bunny Ranch a few weeks ago. There's too many good players in this field for that to happen. Got to beat up on the par 5s. If you're not doing that, you're just not going to score at all. In the whole composition, you can see 6 between 450 and 500, and 2 from 500 plus that are par 4s. That's probably going to be 4 that are over 500 yards, taking 2 away, and you might even see 1 coming up. The par 4s here are either really short or really long. There's nothing really in between, hence, again, why that extra distance really comes into play. I spoke about it earlier, but over 50% of the shots, the majority of shots are coming from 175 and beyond this week. You're going to have your around the green stuff, but you're going to have very few half wedges or even short wedges coming in. The longer irons and down, from 6 iron to woods, are going to be the majority of your approach shots this week. Driving accuracy is very low because of the thin fairways, and then you get nestled up into the rough. It could be a situation, not necessarily like Winged Foot, because I believe only 38% of the field hit the fairways at Winged Foot, where you're probably going to see, right around half the field. Half the shot's going to find the short grass here this week. But Bryson's just ploy of, well, if no one's hitting the fairways, I'm just going to hit it as far as I can into the rough, down as possible, and just be able to wedge it into every single green. That's kind of a similar strategy that you can employ at Quail Hollow this week too. Greens and regulation a little bit lower on an annual basis, but still around 60%. I'd expect that to be around 55. Yeah, it's probably going to be around 60% again this week, because not that much is going to be changed. 3 putts because of the short putts. And maybe that's another thing that's akin to Riv and Torrey Pines versus this place, is just getting the feel of the greens, that there are so many short putts that are missed from 0 to 5 feet at all 3 of these courses that you got to be making those. That's a bad omen for Spieth, who loves missing those. Same as Scotty. Scotty loves missing those. Scotty played here. The only time he's ever played at Quail Hollow in a professional setting was in 2022 at the President's Cup, and he didn't win a single point that week. He was 0-3-1 in that competition. He's never played in the Wells Fargo Championship. Driving distance over 300 yards on average. Green regulation proximity far larger than your average PGA Tour event. So that's what we're looking at for the course. Coming up after the break, Keith Stewart is on the line to break down the course more in detail and some of the players that he likes this week at Quail Hollow. Stay tuned. Have you been looking for a natural way to relieve aches and discomfort? I know that I am on the golf course. The CBD gummies from Cornbread Hemp are formulated to work with your body and not against it. Cornbread Hemp CBD gummies are made to help you feel better, whether it's stress, discomfort, or you just need a little relaxation. They only use the best part of the hemp plant, the flower, for the purest and most potent CBD. All products are third-party lab tested and USDA organic to ensure safety and purity. Right now, Pat Mayo Experience listeners can save 30% on their first order. Just head to cornbreadhemp.com/PatMayo and use code PatMayo at checkout. That's cornbreadhemp.com/PatMayo. Use code PatMayo. There's only one thing I'm really looking for. Well, two things with underwear. I need comfort, to properly firm my junk up in my pants. And I don't want it to be boxy. I don't want it to be lumpy when you look at me. I don't want to look like I have fat rolls at the top of my thighs, which I don't, by the way, but bunchy boxers will do that to you. So I need comfort, I need fit, and I need them to be very comfortable. That's where Skims comes in. When I found out that Skims was making underwear for men, I had to admit, I was pretty excited. My wife, all in on Skims. When the Skims package arrived at my door, my wife was pumped that I got her some Skims. Like, no. Sorry, babe. Those are for me. And they have been fantastic. So comfortable. Wear them almost every single day right now. I got to go buy some more because I don't have a full complement. I don't want to be doing laundry like every 2 days. So, I'm not someone who's going to double up on underwear. I'm not a psychopath, and neither should you be. But if you get some Skims, you can get as many to fill out your entire wardrobe, and you will live in the comfort zone. That's where you want to be, and that's what Skims can provide for you. Shop Skims Men at skims.com and all Skims stores. Let them know that I sent you. After you place your order, select Podcast in the survey and select the Pat Mayo Experience in the drop-down menu that follows. Skims is the official underwear partner of the NBA, WNBA, and USA Basketball. The weather is warming up, which means it's almost time to get back onto the course full time. And if you really want to up your game, you can take the lessons, you can improve your game, but if you're stuck with those old clubs, nothing is going to change. That's why you need to head on over to your local PXG store for a fitting, because they make the best golf clubs, period. I just had mine out for the first time on the course at Pinehurst about 3 weeks ago, and it was awesome. The sound my irons make. I have the Gen 7 irons. They have the chrome top, titanium back. They're awesome. Biggest improvement for me has been the Black Ops driver. I'm carrying the ball about 15 to 20 yards longer off the tee. I'm not a huge hitter. I was about 225, 230 carry off the tee with my old driver. Get the new Black Ops driver, carrying it 245, 250. Hell, I had a 270 drive carrying bunkers down at Pinehurst number 4 on my last day. Once I was really starting to heat up with my clubs, it was amazing. It was so easy to get the fitting done, and it was the fastest way that I have found to improve my game to a point where I'm ready to tackle any course at this point. You can too. And for a limited time, you can save up to 20% on your entire order. Head on over to pxg.com/PatMayo. That's pxg.com/PatMayo to save up to 20% on your entire order. pxg.com/PatMayo. Restrictions apply. See site for details. Well, let's talk about Quail Hollow. We're going down south to North Carolina, just outside of Charlotte. What is your experience, Keith, at Quail Hollow? How many times have you been there? How many different setups have you seen?
I've seen 2 different setups there. I was there for the 2022 President's Cup, and I've been there for a number of Wells Fargo, now Truist, formerly Wachovia, I guess Pick a Bank, and they probably sponsored it there in Charlotte. Just a massive. Now, you just talk about a place that is designed like Augusta National or TPC Sawgrass. Everything there is just built out. The cart paths, everything. They host a big event every year. Johnny Morris and the team there, Quail Hollow Club, they want big events. This is their second PGA Championship, one of the few courses that's on the PGA Tour annually that also hosts a PGA Championship. The President's Cup was pretty good there, but, year in and year out, the guys enjoy going there. They think it's a fit test of golf, and it will reward the best players.
So when you look at it, you have different types of players than you normally would, at least thinking about Quail Hollow and the types of players succeed. Hit the ball as long as possible. win championships. The Rory McIlroy way of playing golf. But in 2017, it was JT who did employ some of those tactics. But then you had Louis, Reed, Molinari, Kevin Kisner, just guys that you would not expect at the top of a Quail Hollow board to be there. I'm guessing because the rough was grown out so much that if you missed the fairway, it was a half stroke penalty basically on hitting the fairway versus missing the fairway was, I think, 0.44 of a difference in a stroke. So should we be thinking about different types of players this time around? Because I like Bryson. He seems perfect for this course. If you wanted to take Rory for even more expensive odds, then you could go take him. But should we be looking at the, I don't know, Corey Connors and Tommy Fleetwoods of the world?
I don't think so, Pat.
Okay.
So we got to tell a little bit of a story here. Hopefully this answers your question. But back in 2016, when Johnny Morris and the club came to Kerry Haig and the championship team of the PGA of America, they were like, hey, we're going to redo a bunch of things like the year leading into the PGA Championship. And like that obviously made the PGA of America very nervous, but they did it anyway, right? And they pulled it off because a place like that has unlimited resources, like an Augusta National, right? So they did an enhancement to the golf course to set up for the PGA Championship, and they finished it just in time. And you know as well as anybody from handicapping golf for over a decade that, you know, when you do that, the surfaces become firm and fast. Well, a perfect storm kind of took place there where they had some dry conditions. It was August. It was Bermuda grass. Everything was tight. And now you look at that leaderboard, and all of a sudden, the guys like Kuchar, Kisner, Hideki, you know, like JT, all these guys that are really good short game players came to the forefront because they had to, right? There was only, 12 guys that finished under par in the 2017 PGA Championship. So I think that particular August version, fresh off of a redo, which is what they learned in doing the redo before last year's Truist, and they gave it a year to grow in. And that's why they did it in 2023 and not 2024 heading into 2025, because they learned that from the last time. I mean, basically, kind of the fireworks and the easy course setup that Kerry Haig used on the Sunday in 2017 saved the championship from everybody like basically shooting over par. So the place was like brand new. It was way too firm and fast, and that's why the leaderboard led that way. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, like, I would have one question for you heading into this thing. I mean, do you like Rory or do you like Bryson? Because I'm with you. It's a bomber's paradise, and you better be able to roll the rock.
I've already bet Bryson.
There you go. Bet him
Is
again.
there anyone else you can think of just like, because you're going to think bombers, but obviously there's different styles of play. Like I remember, Michael Kim finished inside the top 10 here like 2 years ago before he was even Michael Kim. Abe Answer has won here. James Hahn, or was it? Yeah, James Hahn has won here. I always noticed that there was, I don't know what it is. Maybe it was just strength of field, whatever it might be, that there was at least for the Wells Fargo, not necessarily at a major championship or the Truist, as we're now calling it. But a lot of guys have had a lot of success between Wells Fargo, Bay Hill, Torrey Pines, and Riv. Just those four courses. When you start seeing names like James Hahn win at two separate ones, and then you can pick and choose all of the other ones that you want. It seems like those four courses have all shared a lot of similar winners. Is there anything to that, or is it just good players win golf tournaments?
No, well, okay. Those places tend to get the best fields. So you're looking at better players and they're going to get similar fields so that you can see correlation that way. But really, you have to drive the ball great at Riv, and they have unique green surfaces. You have to be able to drive the ball at Quail Hollow, and they have unique green surfaces, much like Augusta National. That would be another great correlation course. It's a major championship venue, and it's going to require you to do things that possibly like what we're looking at this week at the Truist, you just don't have to do, which is like maybe be all that accurate with your length off the tee. Everyone's like, oh, 3 inches are rough on the golf course superintendent's report. Well, guess what? It's May and it's the Philly region. There's no grass that's grown here yet. There's no 3 inches. It's like an Irish 3 inches. Forget about it. It's like maybe 1.5 inches and it's sparse, right? So at the end of the day, I think the correlation that you're seeing amongst those golf courses is that they're all major championship style venues, and they require you to be really good, to be really well-rounded. Can there be guys that are going to climb up this leaderboard a little bit that are maybe middle of the road? Sure. Yeah, I get it. But like at the end of the day, the skill set that you have to show in order to be top 10 in the world. And I guess maybe Russell Henley's like an outlier, but
how about Matt McNeely?
Well, Matt McNeely got longer. He was already a good putter. Then he's worked on his approach game. So he saw the trend of the Rory, the Xander, the Scotty, of all those guys at the top. I mean, how does Wyndham Clark get into the top top 10 in the world. You know, a guy like that. How did Matt Fitzpatrick do it? He got longer and then he used his short game. So, I mean, I can't get around the fact that the PGA, everyone makes fun of the PGA Championship because they say it's the worst of the four majors. And they might be true, right? But since the move to May, they have had some really, really stud champions. You had Brooks in 2019, the first year, right? You had Phil in 2021, which was electric, right? You had Brooks again in 23. They have put together, Kerry Haig and the team has put together a really, really staunch test. And you have got to be a power player in order to do it's 7,600 yards at a par 71, Pat. You know, it's not 7,100 par 70 like I'm sitting in front of right now at the Wissahickon course. It's a whole different ball game there. And that's not to say that Brian Harman can't have a career week, but overall, I just don't see us having a leaderboard like we did back in 2017.
Okay, and I'm glad you were able to clear that up, because that's the thing that's been sticking in the back of my mind, because I've been full hog go on these bombers who can putt. Like that's
Yes.
all I wanted this week.
Yep.
And I bet on some guys that aren't that, because I bet them really early. I thought I was getting a really good number on Hideki and Hatton. Turns out I got exactly the number that they are. You know, sometimes you make bad bets, but the week of, like, just looking at it right now, Bryson, Burmeister, and then I'll start making some ads. Who are some guys from down the board do you think that have, basically from what you said, and when we talked about some of the other courses, be it Augusta, Bay Hill, Torrey Pines, Riv, is Victor someone, like, you're out there right now? How's Victor looking?
Victor still looks like Victor. The good news around that place is that of the four major categories, around the green is going to be the least weighed for all the model heads out there, right? So first and foremost, you're going to have to go with putting. Second, it's going to be driver distance and strokes gained off the tee. Third, it'll be long iron acumen and approach. And then I would go around the green last. So that's a Victor style course. Akshay comes to mind. He's going to be further down the board. I want guys that are aggressive that are going to this place. I want guys that are used to pound and driver all the time. So, like, for me, a guy that might be kind of a wild card, but I thought he would be good this week because he's a good driver, good wedge player, good putter, was Sam Burns, right? Like, that style guy that could go off because he's a good putter and he's long. And if he finds enough fairways that week, then he's going to be in the mix. I mean, you could even see something maybe out of a guy like Sahith that we haven't really saw much of anything, because the tour keeps putting him on these golf courses where he's got to be 100 under, and maybe that just doesn't suit his game. But maybe 12 under par, 10 under par. I really think that, having talked to officials over at the PGA of America, they are aware of all the chatter about Valhalla being 20 something under and multiple guys being 20 under. They don't want to do that again. But Valhalla was wet, right? This is in a really good situation. We do expect some rain early in the week next week, but they have been doing their best to dry the place out. They're growing the rough out. They're adding a half inch of rough versus what you normally see there in the Truist. So I think at the end of the day, I want guys that can bomb it and that can definitely score. First and foremost. Third thing I'd say is that I'd want them to be a decent long iron player, because the par threes are going to take you to task.
I mean, that can also be made up with short game as well, potentially. If you can just tread water on those par threes and then go beat up the par fives, and maybe there's a short par four, right?
There's two of them. The 8th and the 14th are both realistically drivable. And Kerry will put the pins in positions where he'll definitely test people to go for it. 14 is usually the one everyone thinks of because the lake sits down the left-hand side of it.
That's right. Yeah, and if you overcut it, you're into the water. So it's funny. While you were talking, I brought up my driving accuracy and putting modeling, and you kind of hit on the bonanza name. Bryson's number 1, obviously, in this. Sam Burns is number 2.
Yeah, I mean, somebody like Sam Burns coming into form, I would like the long iron play to be a little bit better, but he's been gaining recently with the driver. I mean, that's why I took him this week, and I bet him outright here at the Truist. Now, he's having a good day to start. This is Thursday, round 1. Who knows where that will go, but he always gains with the putter. And the big difference, a lot of people are going to say there's a lot of correlation between here and Augusta National, which is true, but only tee to green. It has been proven you have to be a good putter to win here. Whereas at Augusta, we've seen a lot of mediocre putters win over the years because the greens are almost too severe. These greens are almost perfect in that you can make putts if you hit the right levels and you don't give yourself, you have a decent amount of proximity to the hole. So I can't stress this enough. Guys go off with the putter here and they definitely climb the leaderboard.
So if that's the case, how many tight lies are we looking at? Because Min Woo actually rates out 4th in this. Like, obviously, he's going to be a bit more wayward with his driver than most of these guys at the top. Although Rory can dial it in and become more accurate, just like Bryson. The more that they want to ramp that up, if they know it's full go, then they'll just send it wherever. Where I don't know if Minwoo necessarily has that gear right now, but he ranks out 5th when we start considering putting and long irons for me, taking a look at it. But I know that his play out of the rough isn't very good. He is great. If you just got rid of all rough, that's why I always think that he'll be kind of live at any links course overseas. And Augusta should theoretically be really good for him because he bombs it just as far as anyone. And if you get him on a tight surface, he's sort of like the anti-Victor. He'll spin it to an inch. We saw that in Houston, where when it got a little bit easier and wet, he was just like, yeah, I'll try to chip it in every time. Don't worry about that. Will that skill translate here, or is there simply too much rough around the greens?
I mean, at the risk of being redundant, I'd go right back. I'd read the tape right back to you. I mean, you said it, well, Keith, but they can get by if they have a great short game. We know Dr. Chapinski, to be corny with the whole TGL thing, but we know that Minwoo is a top 10 guy around the green, like a Hideki. And the amount of length he's going to have, and he's a better than average putter. If Minwoo shows any life this week, he would be someone that would be of interest to me. Now, I bet him in Houston. That worked out. But since then, he's been really mediocre. And now this is a golf course where he can let the shaft out. And for a lot of those guys that are long like that, it's difficult sometimes for them to come to a place that's shorter or tighter or whatever to like really swing freely. He's going to have to do that there. And that style of aggressive player, again, like an Akshay or Sam Burns, those are the guys that Bryson's the epitome of this. And so is Rory, right? Give me driver on every tee. I don't care how long the hole is. If it's not a par 3, I'm giving it a full send. And I'll deal with it from there. And, maybe thank the Godfather VJ for all of that mindset. But as far as I'm concerned, the PGA of America identifies their championship with length,
Are you surprised Justin Thomas's odds are not as high as some of these other guys? Like, he's like 25-1.
I think what it comes down to is that they're fading him ever so slightly because of the putter.
But
he was a better putter.
But his putting hasn't been bad. It's been fine.
True, but this is probably a longer conversation for a different pod. But there are times when books go after us with recency bias, and then there are times where books set odds based upon actually what guys are capable of doing. Right? They're probably not convinced that he's a good putter yet, or at the top of the board. I mean, my question to you would be, and this is really going to test the golf betting Twitter people of the world. Now, DFS is a totally different argument, but there's probably like 6 or 8 guys that could win this golf tournament. How do you bet a full card that way? Right?
I have it to 9 guys. Obviously I'm going to bet on guys not of those 9 because I love losing money. No one loves that more than me. But all of us, we all love losing.
We're all afflicted. But yes, go on.
But when you have Rory and Scotty at the very top, and Bryson is 3 times their odds, I don't know how in good conscience you couldn't just bet Bryson instead of those guys. Like, he's closer to them than he is to the other 6 guys who could win right now.
100%. Yeah. My question to you would be like, do you just, because, Rory will probably go off. He'll probably go off as the favorite when it comes down to it. Right. Even though Scotty was 31 under or a million under, whatever he was last week. But like, do you just take 2 bullets, go Rory Bryson, and say I'll take what I can get?
I won't. Like 5-1 on a golfer at a major championship. Well, it's not really 156 players because 20 of them are the Michael Blocks of the world. Your brethren. Is that a big thing for the PGA? You're a PGA professional of America. Yeah. Is it like do you still go and play in these things?
I don't go anymore because I travel so much. But up until the time when I was a golf course operator, up until 2020. I played in regional tournaments all the time. And the goal of every year of every club pro is to make it to Quail Hollow or whatever the host site is that year, to be one of those top 20. And there's a regional championship for all the different PGA sections. There's 41 of them down here in the States. And each one sends about 10 guys to that championship, and the top 20 from that after 4 rounds make it to the PGA. So it's not the most difficult path in the world if you're a very good player. And a lot of these guys, like a Tyler Collette that just won the thing a couple weeks ago, he spent his whole career on mini tours and, on and off Korn Ferry and played, Division I college golf. For a lot of these guys, you get to play in a major championship and you get to play in the US Open because you can qualify, and they're never going to play in the Masters, but it's an annual goal for the better players of my fraternity year in and year out. There's no doubt about that.
So realistically, like when I started, because I do this with the Masters too. Like you have your Fred Couples, you have your 15 old dudes, and maybe 2 of them will make the cut. That's usually what it turns out to be. Like between the amateurs, the old guys, and just guys that somehow qualified because they had one good week and no other good weeks ever. 15 to 20 guys in the field are like that. So between the bottom end of the pros in this field and the PGA professionals, that probably accounts for what, 30 to 40 guys in this field?
Oh, easily 40. Yeah. I mean, between the Sean McKeels, who you're referencing, the top 20, Rich, I don't know. I've seen the field list because I'm doing the power rankings for Golf Digest, and Rich
Beamer's
Beam's
not in
name's
there?
not in it. He's not in there. No, Yi Yang's in there, so you could make up a name for him.
Dude, Yang was hitting hybrids as like a 32-year-old.
I mean, there's, yeah. I mean, Tommy Fleetwood hit, he hit a fairway medal on the par 3, the long par 3 on the front today. So 8th hole. So, he's going to need more of that. I'm with you. At least 40 guys, and even maybe like you could count certain guys that were very good at one point, like DJ, that just don't care anymore. But we don't know if he cares.
You can always have in the back, like if DJ came 7th at the PGA Championship, you'd be like, yeah, DJ's still good. He decided to show up this week. He's not like a write-off. So of those 40 guys, let's say 5 of them make the cut. So now all of a sudden you're dealing with a more palatable field of like 120. But even then, it's still all of the best players in the world from all of the different tours. That if you're telling me Rory is 5-1, but then you're also telling me Scotty is 5-1, well, that's by the odds 40% of the win equity tied up into 2 guys. That's just not true. So Bryson at 14 or 16 makes way more sense. That I would rather bet 3 guys of the Xander tier than 1 Rory, if that makes sense.
I 100% agree with you. The question earlier was more like injustice because it seems like we're set up for another Sunday where it's going to be Scotty, Rory, and Bryson. And there's not much we can do about it. I mean, it was last year's PGA, it was last year's US Open, it was this year's Masters. Bryson's got the blueprint right now for majors. Everyone keeps making them longer and harder, and they just, they used to talk about the Tiger effect, basically helping Tiger. Well, 10 years later, it's golf, right? So it takes them a minute. You and I both know that. It's not an early adoption genre, but or industry. But Bryson's got it down. I think about that 2021 US Open at Torrey Pines, where the rough was like, cabbage. It was like pure lettuce, and Bryson just walked up there. Remember when he hit that one drive and it ended up like in a beer box on Saturday or Sunday? What was it? Like, because he hit the driver so far on that par 5 that like there were people standing there that didn't even know the ball could get there, right? They were like partying it. I mean, like it's been all reinvented as far as I'm concerned. And I think if you're a young college stud or something like that, you did that great preview for the Truist with Alex, and it was just so easy to break this place down. Once you go on an app like 18 Birdies or something like that, and you just look at the topography of this place, and you saw every bunker on the Wissahickon course you could carry at 305, 310. I mean, that's like Jordan Spieth length. That's not Rory. That's not Wyndham. I mean, that's not Sam Burns. Those guys are longer than that. It's crazy, and I think that the major championships are going to be like that. There's no way you can get around it here. The big qualifier is going to be who can putt the best of that top group. And I'm with you. I would much rather like put all my eggs in the Xander or the Bryson basket and take triple the odds. And I know those guys will be there on Sunday. They're just too good.
So you're at the Philadelphia Cricket Club right now, and you're walking around on the range. Anything to report to us? Guys looking good, guys looking bad? Are the players talking about next week yet, or are they just focused on what's in front of them?
So I thought that was one of the biggest questions in the press room the other day. So on Wednesday, we had Xander was last. We had Rory, JT, Xander. And all 3 of them, the media knows what they're doing. They were all getting at the fact they're like, hey, next week's a big week. And all 3 of them, as a bettor for every individual week, I'm worried about like, this course is perfect for Rory, but is he looking ahead? This course is perfect for Xander, but is he looking ahead? It's pretty good for JT too. Is he looking ahead? And to a man, all of them were like, yeah, next week's really exciting. Next week's a big opportunity. So they were looking past all of this. And you could tell with all the work that's going on the range. I mean, Spieth hurt himself in warmups today, but I haven't seen Spieth work this hard on the range at an event since I don't know what. I might not have been out on the road then because his wrist has been hurt since what he said, like, I think 2018, 2019. He just, like, he hasn't been able to put the work in. he was grinding the last 2 days on the green, like on the range, like hours out there. And he was working on something because he thought he could do something special. Unlike your question is more like, well, like I still see Max Homa trying hard. I still see Cam Young lost. I still see Willie Z with like 6 putters. With like he and Siwoo are having they're having a contest who could practice with more putter demos on practice round days. Where we are right now, because we're in the middle of the 100-day 4-major war, what we see is what we get. And what I see out here, I could definitely validate and say what you think's going on is what's happening here at this signature event for sure.
So of those top guys, where would you put Rahm into that mix? I know that you're not following her. I mean, if listen, Liv probably has like an extra $100 million to fly you around. I bet if you went and asked them, they could probably get you out there and see how it's going. Because I know that Patrick Reed is going to be a really popular bet next week because of how well he played at Augusta. I mean, he's someone who plays longer courses and hard courses really well, despite his skill set. And obviously, he finished inside the top 5 or top 10 at Quail Hollow in 2017. But the way that you've now broken down the course, that makes a lot more sense because he is Mr. Short game when it comes to a lot of this stuff that maybe he's absolutely not the right guy to go target for next week. It's almost like I was all over Sergio at the Masters, and Sergio basically said, yeah, I'm playing Durrell, and I'll call it a season after that. Sucked at the Masters, has sucked at Liv since. Of course I get duped by that. But I feel like that might happen with Reed, although it's hard for me to wrangle my mind around. But then you have Rahm sitting there. I could see Rahm hitting 28-1, 30-1 by the time we get to Wednesday and no one has bet on him. But I just don't know what to make of it.
He's going to be the forgotten man. He's got the putter. He's won a U.S. Open. He's got the putter to be able to do it at that place, and he's got the driver to be able to do it. I don't know, man. Like I bet Rahm at the Masters, and I got to quit. It's just like he is just not as sharp is what it comes down to. And here's what I talk myself into. I go, well, you know what? He's not always getting beat up on by Scotty and Rory. So like maybe he comes in with a fresh attitude, unlike maybe like a Xander. And then what did Xander do last year? Well, he won a major because he's always competing against those guys, right? And then Rahm ends up in a flip-flop at the U.S. Open and doesn't play, right? Like, so I think I've got to go with the fact that if you always carry an edge like a Terrell Hatton, I think you'll always be ready. If you're like Mean Dean Burmeister and you could bomb it and you can compete in these major championships, I think you can be ready. I think that if you are John Rahm or like Cam Smith, like those guys, it's like I'm fishing and then I'm going to go to a major and play well. For me, I really feel like Pat, like I want guys that are a little more dialed in, and I just don't know what
Reed will be.
I'm not saying Rahm's not trying. And if Rahm was on the PGA Tour right now, he'd be top 5 in the world because he's that talented. But you got to be pretty darn sharp to go against these guys week after week, and then heighten it up even more at this major championship. It's gonna be tough. I don't know. If Rahm slips to 30, it wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, Reed will stay sharp. I just don't know if he has the skills.
I think that the way the golf course is going to play, he's going to have to play every bit as good as he does at Augusta. Now, I've already said this. The greens here, you have to be a great putter. So that gives him an extra edge. Winning? No. A high value DFS play or a very nice placement? Probably, yeah. I could agree with that.
With the green types at Quail, you mentioned like the Bermuda grass last time around. Is the Bermuda going to be in this time in May, or is it going to be the POA overseed?
No, so this is the first major championship that has a complete overseed of any majors, at least for the century. They're doing POA Trivialis on the greens, and all the Bermuda that would normally be the rough, the fairways, and everything else. It's probably like a 90-10 overseed with ryegrass. So the 90% ryegrass is going to show through, and then you're going to have 10% of the Bermuda kind of being there. But no, it's not going to be a Bermuda major championship like it was in August of 2017. It's going to be completely different. The greens will be. I've heard the place because of the overseed. I talked to a couple people that play down there very often, and the guys that are working on the golf course, they're like, this place is as exquisite as you could imagine a major championship would be. It's like, I won't say that it's like ANGC because that's kind of blasphemous, but man, from what the reports I'm getting is that it is really good shape. They are going to get some rain on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. How much comes through, I don't know, but that's the weather. It's up to the weatherman. But right now, they have that place like totally peaked out.
Well, how does that change then in terms of the rough? Like this is really one part of golf I do not understand. Like it's when I was down at Pinehurst, like me trying to chip off the terrain at Pinehurst, I couldn't do it. Just jamming my club into the ground, and that would be good enough. I might as well have just taken out a driver and chipped it with a driver the entire time. I would have had more success with it that way. But if you're talking about the difference in the rough, at least between ryegrass and Bermuda grass, is one stickier, is one thicker, is one easier to hit out of? Like, what is the difference between these things?
The biggest difference between ryegrass, which is for people that are listening or watching, that it's like grass like this, right? And Bermuda grass is grass like this, this, and this, right? It's really like nappy, right? Whereas ryegrass is just shoots, right? Like what you think of as like normal grass, and it can get very dense and it can be tough to get out of. It is certainly way more predictable, meaning ryegrass. Now I'm talking about that category. It is way more predictable for those guys to control distance and trajectory. Bermuda grass is like a weed. The ball tends to fall to the bottom. They can usually only make it like 2 to 2.5 inches long. It'd be almost unplayable at 3-4 inches. You just there's nothing you could do. The ball would drop to the bottom, and then you would just always be chipping out. Bermuda grass is way, way, way more unpredictable. And I think a big part of the PGA Championship going back to a southern venue like this was the idea that they were going to do an overseas, because the players don't like major championships Bermuda grass. We see it very, very rarely, and they don't like it because it's super unpredictable around the greens. The ball falls to the bottom or it sits on top. It's extremely difficult to try to figure out trajectory, spin, etc. At least with the other ryegrass rough, you have a general idea of how far you're going to hit it. You won't be able to control spin, but you can at least find your landing areas and maybe, hit the front edge of the green, let it roll out, or you can, aim for a certain target or quadrant, or maybe it's a green side bunker because you can't hold like a short side of a green or something like that. It's just way more predictable.
So is that why, like, when we see Bay Hill in March, I assume it's very much the same thing?
Like, yeah, they are completely overseeded. Yeah, it will look a lot like Bay Hill, and it should perform a lot like Bay Hill because it's going to be demanding off the tee, and the greens, they're going to be softer than probably they want them to be, but the greens are going to be challenging, but you'll be able to make putts, and it'll be a lot more protected from the wind than a Bay Hill would be. And Bay Hill's surrounded by lakes down there, like where I used to work right across the lake at Isleworth. I mean, Orlando or Windermere, where Isleworth is, Windermere means among the lakes. So, they get way more wind affected golf down there. You're not going to see that as much at Quail Hollow. It looks like next week, I've already looked at the weather. It's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. The air is going to be heavy. Ball's going to be flying if it's humid. Here's a quick PSA. When it's humid, the ball goes further. Why? Well, not only are the players' bodies a little bit more loose, but heavy air holds the ball up in the air, right? Whereas when it's cold or it's drier, then the ball falls out of the air quicker. So hot, humid conditions next week, not a lot of wind. Expect length longer to get even longer.
It's funny you mentioned that because I played this morning in the east coast of Canada in 9 Celsius degree weather, complete fog everywhere, and the ball went nowhere.
Yep.
And then,
yeah.
Is it me hitting it that it goes nowhere? Maybe. But I would also like to put some of the blame on the weather at the same time. Hard to cut through that. When your rangefinder doesn't work because it's so foggy, it's not ideal conditions for length.
Yeah. Well, speaking of rangefinders, I know they've been out on the tour lately, but PGA of America, like 5-6 years ago? I think it was Kiowa, was the first time they allowed rangefinders. So they'll have rangefinders in effect next week.
Do you find that's helping pace of play?
Oh, it should definitely help pace of play. I mean, the biggest hindrance to pace of play is that no one tells these guys to play quicker. Now, it will help slightly to have them use rangefinders because when you get off target, the caddy's got to run, put the bag down at the player. Then he's got to run out to his yardage book. He's got to find a sprinkler head. He's got to pace everything off, and he's got to triangulate what the distance and the carry distance is. That takes time. If you take a rangefinder and you just hit it, the guy's like, okay, Keith, go over there. I'm going to hit, Pat, I'm going to hit the shot. And then, yes, it would speed things up. Not considerably because the guys just don't play fast. They're never in a rush. I was walking with Cantley's group this morning. So it's Cantley, Harmon, and Hoagie. And we're on a par 4. Harmon hits the cup. He blows it out. And he hits it it goes like 40 feet from the hole. It was an unfortunate break that happens all the time. But he blows out the cup. Well, none of them would play from that point because the cup was screwed up. Not so much that somebody couldn't have made a putt, right? But they waited, an official came over, then they had to call over one of the, the green staff, and then they rebuilt the cup where it was. And then they all checked it out. And then they're like, okay, now I'll play. Well, that took like 12 minutes. There wasn't one guy that was like even thinking about playing. And you could insert all the Cantley jokes you want, but Hoagie and Harmon were like, no way. Like, we're not doing anything until that thing's fixed. So until somebody is like, hey guys, like usher it along a little bit, even with the LPGA, they're like, oh, we have a new pace of play policy or whatever. Like, just start throwing people strokes, because strokes are points and dollars. And that's the only thing that's going to speed them up.
I was going to say do it the other way, that if you play faster, you get money.
Well,
Like, it's not that you play slowly, you get docked money. If you play fast, you get money.
yeah, but okay. So you and I are fast golfers, and we're in a twosome, but in front of us, right? We're
Oh,
in
yeah,
the
I know.
final group. We're in the final group at Quail Hollow Club, but in front of us is Byron and Kenny Kim, and they're slow as hell, right?
Well,
Like,
it's not their
it
fault.
does-
They drank a fifth of tequila. They're passed
Well,
out.
That's Byron's too busy playing the par 3 game, but I did teach it to him, but that's neither here nor there. But like, yes, you could incentivize guys for going quicker, but the slow ones would still be slow, and then you can't run people over. So it has to be, everyone has to buy in, or everyone just, I mean, really what they need to do on TV is just show more golf shots quicker. And again, another podcast for another day that I could go on at length, but that, 90 seconds of Spieth and Greller over what they're going to do from the fairway, why not just like show 3 full swing shots and then a couple long putts? And people, like, if you change the cadence of the way that the coverage happens, then people would think it happened faster. They're still going to watch for the same amount of time, but when the coverage is slow, then the players look slow, and basically they're slow.
I spoke about this with Geoff on the show on Monday because it occurred to me while playing in a group with one guy who was horribly slow. And because he was so slow, all of a sudden now I'm slow, despite the fact that I'm standing next to my ball the entire time. So at your club, you should have some sort of, everyone has a handicap. Could you have a speed handicap at your club? And then like you're not allowed to play on weekends if you're super slow because you're going to play a 6-hour round. Therefore, everyone is now going to play a 6-hour round. That there would be some sort of penalty for slow play. But it doesn't matter what your real handicap is. You can be the worst player at the club, but you can be fast and then no one cares.
I mean, again, this is a little bit more of an indictment on society. Now, my background, I was a operator in a green grass for over 20 years. And every year we'd have this pace of play conversation, and nothing changes unless you're going to post names. And then when it gets to that point, no one's willing to post their buddy or their wife or whomever up on the board, like in the locker room. You can do it, behind closed doors in the locker room, whatever, and just say, hey, Pat's group was slow on Saturday morning, and then have peer review get you to help be quicker. But if people aren't willing to do those things, or the tour's not willing to like give us the name. I mean, the tour doesn't even give us the names of who's slow. They know who's slow, right? When they held a press conference and they talked about using rangefinders, they're like, well, they know how long the average shot takes, whether it's on the rough, whether it's online, whether it's in the fairway, whether it's in a fairway bunker, whether it's on the left rough, whether it's obstructed, whether it's unobstructed. So like they know all of that data. They certainly know who the slow players are, right? But the fact that they don't release it and let social media go to town on these guys tells you that, much like what I was dealing with back at the club level, like until as a society we want people to go quicker, I mean, I guess join Byron and Kenny and just start sipping the tequila.
All right, Keith, thanks for being on with us. Who you got as the winner for the PGA Championship?
It's really tough for me to get away from Bryson. I think that Rory and Bryson are there in the end. I think we didn't touch upon this, but Scotty never plays Quail. The only time he's ever played it competitively was the 2022 President's Cup. He normally skips this signature event, which he's skipping this week after going nuclear in Dallas. That lack of experience and the putting greens versus Rory, who's won there 4 times, and Bryson, who's obviously built for the modern major championship. I think it's who we think they are in the end, and I think Bryson gets them back, which is going to give us a really good U.S. Open, and Bryson's not much of an Open Championship guy, so maybe the best out of 3 for this playoff series happens at Oakmont, and I'll go with Bryson.
If it wasn't going to be one of the top 10 guys, like the guys we all kind of think it's going to be one of them, if it was just someone else, who do you think that could be? Because we've seen that at Quail Hollow over there. Like Derek Ernst won at Quail Hollow once.
Yeah, the truest. If you look at the guys that have broken through there, it was Rory's first win, it was Ricky's first win, it was Homa's first win. And you talk about James Hahn, Ernst. I mean, there's a lot of outliers there. If I was going deep there, I would be, again, looking for a player like an Akshay, like a Davis Thompson, somebody that's really aggressive with the driver and is a very good putter. And hey, you know what? Justin Rose has been the runner-up for the last 2 in a row. So for us older guys, Pat, why not let Rosie make a run again? He's savvy enough to do it. He and Fooch for old times. Give him 3 in a row. Let him get up there and contend.
I mean, you've mentioned Akshay a few times. You didn't need to twist my arm on Akshay. And he's he's now a North Carolina guy too. He should be plenty familiar.
Yes. Yeah. That seed was planted on purpose, my friend.
He doesn't have the distance, though, is the one thing.
Yeah.
But listen, not everyone does everything well, but I take your point that it does feel like no matter, I guess the Hith kind of works that way too, that no matter where they are, it's like old school Hunter Mayhem that they're just going to fire at the pit. That's the one gear they have.
And those guys like slamming Sammy Burns, baby, and when, he's won 4 or 5 times because when it all works out, you win $4 million, then you wait 2 years and you do it again, but it works out for you. Right. And I mean, those are the types of guys I'd be going after. And hey, you know what? I was doing a little research. One of the guys that's going to be further down the board that always shows up there is Denny McCarthy, and he's been hot today. So I don't know where he finished. I guess I could look at the leaderboard.
He's in first.
Okay, so he finished 8th, but he was like 5 under through 6 early, right? He's notoriously good there. And again, it proves the point that you better be a good putter. Reed, McCarthy, those guys, make sure they're in your betting card and your DFS lineups.
All right. The only final thing is you mentioned being there for the President's Cup. The setup for the President's Cup is going to look nothing like this, right?
They rerouted holes.
Yeah, but I mean, just in terms of the rough length, like every time you get a home, especially against the international team, when the home setup is for the Americans, I remember the Ryder Cup at Hazeltine, the rough was like this thick. They were like, no, just like have it set up so we can just go bombs away.
You always do this. You make me bring up tangent things. But so with the Ryder Cup, there is a home team setup. With the President's Cup, it's owned by the PGA Tour. So they don't set it up for the home team.
You don't think that they are, it'd be real bad if we were in America and the internationals win. That's not good for the President's Cup.
Be that as it may, the same governing body sets it up for both, and they set it up to be exciting with scoring and everything. So the President's Cup is not going to apply to this, and neither is 2017. I would look towards last year's, after the most recent renovation, last year's, and it being a little bit softer, and take those types of guys and run with it.
Thanks to Keith for being on the line. You can check out Keith at readtheline.com and KJ Stewart PGA on X. Safe travels, pal, from Philly all the way down to North Carolina. But now, the ultimate PGA Championship draft, ranking the best PGA championships from the past 15 years with myself, Geoff Feinberg, and Tim Cust. Okay, we're going to do a draft of the past 15 PGA championships. We did this for the Masters. It was pretty easy, because I feel like we're all very familiar with the Masters every year. The PGA Championship is a bit different. It's the least talked about of the majors. It was in August, and it got switched to May. It feels like it's more important since it was switched to May, but just scanning the list of them and the ones that popped instantly to my mind, it's kind of crazy. So Tim has the first pick. Geoff has the second pick. I have the third pick. We're going to go in snake fashion. So I'm curious to know where you end up, because I think there's...
I know which one I'm taking.
There's a clear top 3, right?
I think so.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Okay.
We'll see what I take at 3 and 4.
To me, there's 3, and then I'd say there's maybe there's even gaps within the 3.
So the last one, the earliest one we're going back to is 2010?
Yes.
Okay.
If you have questions about the year, I have the list in front of me.
Okay.
So it's your pick first. Go ahead.
I'll take 2021 at Kiowa.
That was going to be...
I think that's the most iconic PGA championship of the last 50 years, let alone the last 15.
It was the most fun, I think.
It was the first one in the 2 years where we actually had real crowds. And particularly that scene on 18 when they lost control and it was a madhouse. You had Phil and Brooks trying to snake their way through a massive crowd, trying to get to the ball. And the whole PGA tournament, the whole USPGA, you had Phil leading and where everyone's like, this can't last. This is sort of like when Freddie Couples leads at the Masters. When is he going to fall off a table? Because his form had been horrific going into the...
Well, he had won a senior event.
But his form in I guess the best of the best, it didn't seem possible that it could happen. Even though, Tiger, 2 years ago had won that Masters out of sort of nowhere. It just seemed like Phil is, he's going to be the oldest major winner of all time. You had Brooks.
Tiger was like 20-1. Phil was like 250.
Yeah, and you had Brooks in his prime, Louis in his prime, chasing them down, and it's such a golf course that doesn't suit Phil Mickelson. Like Kiowa is such a bad track for somebody who's so errant off the tee, and yet the moment met the man, and it was just it's just one of the greatest moments in golf that I can remember.
It's funny to think about because that scene on 18 that you're talking about, and I would have had that as either 1 or 1A with one of the other ones that almost had a similar iconic shot to it. And
he also made the sand shot in that final round, which I think was on number 6, where he pitched in from the sand, and Lundqvist was on the call. It was when he was still doing PGA Championships, and it was like, oh my goodness. Like that was the first time I allowed myself to think that maybe Phil might actually win this thing.
It's funny because I thought that Louis was going to come from behind and take it from
And he almost did.
Yeah.
And Brooks was chasing him down too. And yet Brooks, I think after the first hole, I want to say the first hole, Phil bogeyed and Brooks birdied. And it was like they were tied or it was just a 1-stroke lead or something. And everything got super tense. Like, oh goodness, okay, I guess it's going to happen.
No, Brooks took the lead after the first.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I thought there was a switch of birdie bogey, and like Phil went from up 1 to down 1. Or
but then Phil on the par 5, Phil birdied the second hole, and Brooks made double bogey.
Double bogey. Yeah, and that was, and then when he pitched in for birdie, it just changed everything, and just it was just that most iconic of moments. And then Nance saying that Phil had defeated Father Time, and it's just. I know it was the last time that the whole world loved Phil, I feel like, and it was like the crowning moment. You never thought you were ever going to get another Phil major. He was going to be 5 for his career, and 5 is a fantastic number, but 6 really does elevate you. It puts you up there with Faldo, and like he got it, and no one thought he was going to get it, and it had been, his last major had been the 2010 Masters or 2013 Open Championship, which also was a shock. People did not think Phil was going to win,
and really he shouldn't have.
And
won.
he shouldn't have.
Dustin should have.
But he played the best back 9 of up to that point anyone had played at an Open Championship at Muirfield. Sorry. So there are other ones that are really close, and I think we'll get to them very quickly. But the 2021 PGA is the one I would pick.
I forgot that Harrington made a run in that too.
That's why you got to go to the Masters the next year. Yeah.
So Geoff, was that going to be your number 1?
Yeah, probably. Be hard to talk off it. But mine also will involve Phil. Oh. But it was a losing Phil effort. I'll go to
2014.
Yeah, 2014 Valhalla. Yeah. Rory, Phil, Ricky in the dark. Phil great. Pissed that Ricky gave Rory permission to essentially play up and all that that came with it. I just so for me it would be wouldn't
have been the one I picked second, but that's a good one.
So it probably would have been third for me. The one I'm going to pick is Brooks at Bellerive.
Interesting. Not what I would have picked either.
That's the iconic shot of Tiger walk because Tiger came second. It was the first time that Tiger seemed legitimately back. And like he had played well in a few tournaments. I think he had won the Tour Championship the year before that.
Interesting.
And just it seemed like a real moment because Tiger was involved, and it was almost like it was Brooks's first PGA Championship. It was like a coronation for him.
I mean, I like the pick. It's not what I would have gone with, but I think it's a good pick.
And there was a lot. I recall Adam Scott being in that. Gary Woodland was up there as well. But like Tiger, it seemed like Tiger was going to win at some point.
I do feel like Brooks ended up winning by 4 or 5.
He won by 2.
2. Okay. Yeah. All right.
But do you remember that picture that I'm talking about when Tiger walked up?
Oh yeah, no. The crowds were all like I do. Remember, it was the last August PGA Championship as well because the next year was at
across a bridge to like get back to the clubhouse or something.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the first round. So I'm up next, and I have a huge bias on this, but I think I'm going to save it because I don't think any of you guys are going to take it. I'm going to play some game theory here.
Okay.
I'm going to go to 2010 and take
the Dustin moment.
That's what I was doing.
Yeah,
and taking Martin Keimer beating Bubba in the playoff after Dustin grounded his club on the 72nd hole.
I just remember Dustin saying afterwards how glad he was that he didn't make the putt.
Dustin like
because he thought he would have won the PGA in his mind if he had made the putt, and so that was a tough one.
Keimer has such a weird career.
It was the same year that Dustin took the 8 at Pebble Beach and lost
to
the U.S. Open to him and Gregory Avray.
It was McDowell who won.
McDowell won, and Avray finished second. Like Dustin, that was a bad year for Dustin.
Yes.
2 majors he had on his racket and he let go.
And what year did he end up winning?
16.
2015?
16
We're back there now.
at Oakmont, yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be 2010 Keimer at Whistling Straits for me.
Okay.
It sucked because the next time it was at Whistling Straits was...
Oh, it was unwatchable.
It just wasn't
Jason
good.
Day won by a million strokes.
He won by 3.
And he shot 20 under par, I think.
He did shoot 20 under par.
Yeah.
That is correct. So Geoff, it's back to you.
Might be sniping you, Pat. I know your
hear you,
game
Geoff.
theory. I might have picked that Whistling
Can't hear
Straits one though, but because I had
Can't hear him.
DJ, it's just such a
okay.
bad memory. I am going to go. I don't love the choices, but Keegan 2011.
Oh,
and
wow.
the
Okay.
insane
So my second
finish with
choice
him
is
and
mine.
Duffner.
I that was very high up on my list.
Oh, great. Then I get
Like,
to pick
go
my number
open, go look at this fucking thing. Keegan Duffner birdies 13.
It's at
or
Atlanta
sorry,
Athletic Club. He blew it. Yeah.
Yeah, Keegan like exploded on the back 9 down 4, and then he makes 2 birdies. Duffner gives a couple back. They go to a playoff. And maybe it's just like I was with a group of guys. It was like just an enthralling finish and more sort of like the memory of the scene in the afternoon. But yeah, I don't love a ton of these. So
Okay.
this is where I go.
So you get your number. Your number 2 is on the board.
It's at Harding Park, 2020.
God damn it!
Because you had like 6
That's-
guys within a stroke of the lead coming down the stretch. I understand
That was-
nobody was at the tournament because it was the first COVID major. But like that has the iconic moment is Morikawa driving the drivable par 4
and
making
chipping
eagle.
in earlier in the round.
like-
too. Your boy Haotong on the range.
Yes, that was after the first round. But like you had 6 guys with a legit chance to win the PGA Championship there. That one is indelibly
Yeah, but it's worth a
marked.
half.
But it's not. That was an amazing tournament.
It was amazing. It was the first COVID major, and it was the first time that all the best players were together at one time at one tournament.
I want to bet on that, and I still think like it's like a half a major.
All right, it was one of the more compelling final rounds I can remember.
I don't know. You don't get to call that a half major, and then you don't get to say, as we said on the Masters show, when you both said, "Oh, Dustin's win at Augusta in 2020 is perfectly valid."
It is.
It is.
They won major championships.
They're both valid, so they're valid.
There was limited.
I understand why
crowds.
Jeff's
There
not
wasn't
saying
no.
that
Was
because
there
his
no
arch
crowds, or was
nemesis
it
won the
limited
tournament.
at the Masters?
I don't remember. Was it limited crowds at the Masters?
No, there's no.
Yeah,
no
there was
crowds.
limited.
There was no one there. There was the people like working there.
That was it. There was nobody at that.
Yeah,
Masters.
yeah, it's a half. It's a hafer.
Like, I
he gets
remember-
he gets to show up forever. That'll get taken away.
It
But
was
yeah.
Cameron Smith, I think, who hit the shot on 15 into the pond behind the hole that we never knew about because there's crowds back there, so you never get to see that pond back there. But
Hideki
anyway,
went there too.
yes, he
The
did.
year that he won.
I've seen
yes,
lots
he
of
did.
guys go. What do you mean? That's
But like there's no crowd standing around where he hit.
I played
and
the
they
video
didn't
game
notice it.
forever. I fucking drove in. I hit that.
No, but
pond hard.
he's saying where Cam Smith went in.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
people are
Yeah,
usually standing around there, so you don't usually see that.
That was going to be my pick. I just assumed you guys would say COVID PGA Championship. No thanks.
No.
That's what I would have said. yeah.
Now the question is, what do I pick next?
Yeah.
That being said, the other ones suck. That's the problem. So you're
Well,
right. Maybe I
no.
would have picked it.
No, they don't, because there's a couple really good ones here, and I'm not going to probably get to pick again. For excitement purposes, Southern Hills is right there. Of course, with the high drama at Southern Hills.
I mean, you had
Mito.
a direct impact.
I don't
and ruined
think that. I
poor guy.
don't think that.
'Cause
I
that
did.
guy hasn't done shit since. Poor Mito, man. You cursed him into the back end to live.
So it depends. Like to me, it's between that one, Brooks at Oak Hill, because that was a very fun PGA Championship, and when we got 2 rounds of golf at Baltusrol, when Jimmy Walker outlasted Jason Day, who had a chance with 2 back-to-back par 5s at the end with a chance to try to win. But Jimmy Walker is so unmemorable that I am going to go with Southern Hills, Justin Thomas outlasting Mito Pereira.
Outlasting Will Zalatoris.
That's right. That was the playoff. Was Zalatoris and who missed a putt. Zalatoris and Thomas, like the 2010 one, people don't remember who won it. People remember who fell apart. They remember Dustin fell apart at Whistling Straits, and they remember that Pereira fell apart at Southern Hills.
There was 2 putts, Geoff, for Will Zalatoris. Well, Zalatoris made the putt to get into the playoff,
but then missed the winning.
But he missed the winning.
People,
He missed the winning putt, and then he missed the putt at the U.S. Open to get into the playoff with Fitzpatrick by
Yes.
like a half inch.
and people forget JT missed like an 8-footer on 18.
Well, he does that.
but it doesn't matter. I don't really have a good answer. Don't really have a great answer left. Rory blew away Keough. Like everything else feels a bit of a blowout.
Well, I think the Brooks one is the one to take then. Brooks at
or the
Oak
first
Hill,
Justin
one.
one.
Well, he almost gave away the
first
one.
Justin one's at Quail Hollow, where we're at this year.
It was a good tournament.
I'll go back to back
I
on
remember
Justin
he went
Thomas
700 par.
PGAs.
It was the first time the PGA Championship really showed its teeth. Was 2017.
I mean, that was
Since Keegan won. Keegan won at -8 over
Hideki
Duffner.
didn't finish second, but I think Hideki was in the final group, and Reed and Louis, Molinari, Fowler.
I
Kisner.
liked the year Duffner won. Only it was also at Oak Hill. It was him and Furyk down the stretch.
Yeah.
Furyk actually had the lead going into Sunday, but it was an unmemorable. Like you can't think of a single shot that Duffner or Furyk made in that round to make it memorable.
Yeah,
I mean, if I voted Duffner, it would be just the Amanda factor of like her being part of the day. But
So I was thinking about the Brooks over Dustin at Bethpage. I just found that Brooks basically had that one after
and then
the
he
first
got
round.
really tight, and he almost gave it away in
And
the
then he
last
didn't.
round, and then he didn't.
Yeah, but like I think Spieth was third. Like Luke List was sixth. Like
Yeah.
it was a very uncompelling tournament. So I'm actually going to take last year's PGA Championship. I know that everyone hates it, but you want to talk about a fun final round? The crowds were going mental for Bryson. It was a birdie fest.
Yeah.
It was like an old PGA Championship.
It was.
But there was a bunch of guys just lingering around the leaderboard, and guys had to go execute. Like Xander had to go execute shots to win, and he did. And him and Bryson going 1v1 was a lot of fun. People just hate that it rained that week. That sucks.
had the Scotty got arrested. So
Scotty
it's
got
special
arrested.
in its own way.
Scotty
That's
got
the,
arrested.
that's the moment people remember from that.
You know what?
tournament.
No, you know, no.
Pat? In
Bryson,
that should have been higher.
Bryson chipping in at his last shot of the
On
third
Saturday,
round
yeah.
to get in, and like everyone going crazy was pretty good
Yeah,
too.
that was good.
Yeah. I don't think I performed very well in this draft.
I think I won.
You got one. You took 3 of the past 5. 3 of the past 4.
Yeah, that's
Different
just
than the
ones that-
Masters.
Yeah, the Masters not
This
as.
is why, like Tim's whole thing. Tim, we're gonna invite Tim on Monday because he'd be like, "Remember 10 years ago, Geoff, when you said the PGA doesn't count?"
You did.
So that leaves us the ones that did not get drafted
Was the
were
Rory blowout in 2012.
the Rory blowout at Kiowa, Jimmy Watt. That I hated that PGA.
Well,
Championship.
it was all condensed. It was actually played in July because of the Olympics.
And they played
They
36 holes on Sunday.
But you guys loved the Masters when Rahm and Brooks played for 36 holes together.
Maybe we should have
It didn't get
picked a-
drafted in the Masters draft
No, but like you talked about how compelling that was of the last 5 years.
because
yeah.
it was Rahm and Brooks. Like Jimmy Walker's Jimmy Walker. Like it's a lot like Duffner winning. It's like, yeah, it's great.
If we
and everything.
redrafted the Masters one, would you have taken this one first?
Which one?
When we just had?
No, I think it's still second, but it's more of like a
It-
1B maybe.
Would you take it over 2019? Is it now the Masters we will see till Kingdom Come when there's a rain delay?
No, because
Ooh,
Tiger's
well,
still like
yes.
Jack 86. Right?
Yeah,
Like,
yes,
that's-
it will be the one because it has the best broadcast quality. That's
Okay.
usually how they take the most compelling one that has like. It's hard to put it on the 2010 Masters
Yeah,
because it's in like box
The
format.
Tiger one was great, but like they played in threesomes and they had to play a bunch.
Yeah, but there was a lot of guys coming down the stretch in that one too.
There
was
was.
just a lot going
There
on,
was.
and I actually thought it was compelling that they played in threesomes because it condensed everyone on the course at the same time.
Yeah, sort of. But
Yeah.
like the ending and Rory, collapsing into an emotional, like that's the moment.
Yeah, I think I prefer. I think if we did the redraft, that this year's Masters would be better than last.
I might have enjoyed this year's more, but I would probably still feel I have to draft like Tiger 19-1, I think.
Yeah. So the other one that didn't go, I guess,
Was Day
Brooks.
winning?
Oak Hill.
Tim drafted Oak Hill. We didn't get the Brooks over Dustin at Bethpage. We didn't get Jimmy Walker at Baltusrol. Are they going back there?
Yes, they are going back to Baltusrol at some point.
Jason Day over Spieth at Whistling Straits. It felt like Whistling Straits would have played harder.
Yeah, it played super hard the first 2 times they played there when Singh won in 04 and then when Keimer won. But then, yeah, Keimer, he's going to be a Ryder Cup captain soon.
No, he's not.
A 2-time major champion. You don't think even though he went to live, he might be able
Oh, yeah,
to?
Pat, we didn't mention him when we did it earlier.
Yeah, he
If they play one in Germany, how could they pass him up?
if they played
If
one in
they
Germany,
play one
maybe.
in
I don't think
Germany.
they're playing one in Germany.
When are they playing? Unless Thomas Rusmai Roosmuller's a superstar. Like, when they going to Germany? They'll go to Sweden before Germany.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
I'd be actually quite surprised if one of the Scandinavian countries didn't get a Ryder Cup with so many good Scandinavian players now.
Yeah.
But Keimer would have been behind that list of like all the guys, like even on Live, he like Stenson's clearly number one because he was the captain until he wasn't. Poulter and Westwood would be ahead of him.
Garcia.
Sergio would be ahead of him.
G-Mac.
Keimer and G-Mac, I feel like is a toss-up.
I said to Pat, I think Justin Rose is probably next in line.
We didn't even think about Justin Rose, Geoff.
Okay, but we were talking about more of the Live guys. But you're right. Justin Rose is now probably the guy to get it from Luke. Yeah,
One would think.
Unless they welcome the other guys back.
Yeah.
But I would only, Rose could make this year's team, and Europeans don't usually go from playing to captaining. They usually like enter their little thing for at least once or twice.
What do you think the best Tiger PGA Championship is? The Point over Bob May? 2000 at Valhalla?
I think it's got to be the only really memorable. The only other memorable one for
Medina.
Tiger is when he lost to Y.E. Yang at Hazeltine.
No, he beat Sergio. Sergio rope
In 99
shot.
with Sergio jumping in the air at Medina. Yeah.
I just opened up that
My
Y.
favorite one was at Oakland Hills.
Y. Yang
when,
board.
Harrington won it like 1 under par. That was a really fun tournament. 08, I believe.
That
it was.
Y.
It was when he
Yang
went back to back, or 07. He went back to back majors.
Yes, he won. Yeah, he won at 3 under in 2008 over Ben
that was-
Curtis and Sergio.
That was a great tournament.
Yeah, the Y.E. Yang has to be the most improbable of all of these winners. More than McKeel, more than Rich Beam.
I think he's got to be not just who he was, but who he beat. Like he beat Tiger down the stretch.
Rich Beam beat Tiger too.
Yeah, but not with the same dramatic flair that Y.E.
And-
Yang did with that hybrid on 18 going up the hill.
I know, like obviously Phil is this crazy, like odds to win, like outlier. But, we sort of have this reputation, Pat, of like the PGA Championship of the majors, the Open too, but like sort of opening up to down the board in a way we were all ready to probably discuss, thinking Mito was about to win. But I mean, now you just look at the majors, like to bet next week, like over 30-1, like good luck, man. Like good luck. Like
So-
look who wins these things.
So even to put it into some context, I think Jimmy Walker was 4th in the world when he won.
Yeah, Jimmy Walker wasn't a nobody.
I think he was 20-1 to win the PGA Championship when he won. And Day was the number 1 player in the world, I think, at that time. Rory probably was in 2014, or it was him
12.
or Tiger.
Well, he won at 12, and he was even.
Thomas might have been like 40 or 50-1 on his first
I
win.
don't know what Keimer would have been because Keimer hadn't won really much by that point.
No, but you'd have to go back to Duffner.
Duffner had given away the PGA the year before.
2 years before.
In
2
2010.
years.
2 years.
It was the Valhalla between.
Yeah, you're right.
No, it was
or
Kiowa.
sorry, not Valhalla.
Kiowa was in
Quail.
between them. Yeah, Kiowa was in between them. Yes, yes.
Trying to think of other really good PGA championships. I don't even remember VJ winning at Whistling Straits.
Yeah, it was the first time it was ever there.
I don't remember.
Phil winning
I don't
at
remember that one.
Baltusrol.
I feel like that one was a rain delay on a Monday.
Might have been.
On it, the move to June is the move to May is the best thing to ever happen to this tournament.
I agree.
And now we enter next
made the
week
players
with
much
Rory.
worse, but it's made the PGA better. And I wonder if
But-
that's a
and think
trade-off
about
the
it, Tim.
tournament, the association wanted to make.
I don't.
And
But
now, like we'll enter the next PGA, like this upcoming PGA Championship with Rory, Scheffler, and Bryson all playing incredible.
and,
Like,
and JT
can't
picking up a win.
And JT.
can't wait.
I mean,
Like,
JT's won the
phenomenal.
PGA Championship twice.
And at Quail Hollow, that's true. He is
And
a
some
PGA
people
winner.
say,
Some people say what?
I was gonna make a course comp, but it's is to the some. There's a lot of golf in my head. It was to
I don't know.
Philadelphia, not to.
We'll
Quail,
see. I think
so.
a long shot's probably going to win. I just have a hunch.
Like,
we kind of do for
But you,
one.
but you-
Define a long shot, like
you-
over
but you think Spieth's gonna
40-1.
win.
Well, Spieth kind of would be in a way, even though he isn't. I like 100-1, 90-1 type of person who fires one off.
I would say a long shot at a major is now 50-1.
When was the last time anyone from that low won?
Well, Phil was 2021.
What's
Wyndham.
that?
Wyndham.
Wyndham
Wyndham,
and
yeah,
Harman
Wyndham at
did
80.
it.
There you go.
Yeah,
And I don't know
They
what
did a
Brian
couple
Harman
years
was
ago.
at
Oh yeah,
St.
Brian
George's.
Harman was like 100-1.
Yeah, Wyndham and Harman, long shots.
Yeah. I mean, I still feel like the Open is the most open
because
to.
it's so weather dependent.
Yeah,
yeah, of course.
but that's where I'd be at. Let's jump into the modeling and try to predict out who is going to win at the PGA Championship. I really do think it probably comes down to like a list of 7 or 8 players like Keith and I talked about, but we'll see if there's any outliers from the bottom of the list. I've built out my model at fantasynational.com. Once again, you can get that 20% discount by going to fantasynational.com/Mayo. Links down in the description as well. You get the monthly, and you'll get 20% off from now through the U.S. Open. A great advantage and a great deal to take advantage of. You get 5 tournaments, including 2 majors and an elevated event and the Canadian Open and Colonial. 5 amazing tournaments for that monthly rate at 20% off. So here's what I'm looking at percentage-wise when I built out my modeling. Off the tee, 18%. Approach, 20%. Around the green, down to 7%. Proximity at 5% for 175 to 200. 8% from 200 plus. That's the reason that I have the discrepancy between off the tee and approach being so close. Normally, because I even told you that approach should be a little bit higher, and it is for approach versus off the tee, but I have 2 proximity buckets here as well, which are strokes gained, approach, and just saying it in a different way from a certain distance. Now, driving distance, I do have at 14% to match up with off the tee. The long par 4s, 450 to 500 yards at 8%. Putting, 5 to 10. Putting, 10 to 15 at 7% apiece. And then we go back in and take a look at the 200-yard, 225-yard par 3s. We are going to run this model. I had already updated it for the PGA Championship as opposed to my regular Quail Hollow model, but if this one goes well enough, then hey, why not, right? And we're going to sort by 2025 only to see the better form of the players coming in. We'll see who does the best in this modeling. I bet you it is Scheffler, Bryson, and Rory would be my guess, the 3 best players in the world. So let's see if that's how you know the model's looking good, if it has the right players in it. Scotty, Rory, Ludwig is up. Well, Bryson probably only has 4 rounds of data because it's just the Masters for him. Correct. He comes out at 57th, but I bet you if we did it per average, then he would end up doing a lot better. If we just go to, if we get rid of 2025 and just take the past 24 rounds in general of players, I bet you he's much higher. Yeah, there he is. Then he's number 2. So this is how I know, not necessarily that this is correct, but at least I'm in the right realm of what I want to be looking at. If the best players aren't at the top, then we got some problems. Now, it's the guys in between that you want to start looking at that I think really rate itself out well. Brooksy's still up here. He's been struggling on live, but the ball striking still been good. His around the green game has been bad. His putting has been even worse. Dude cannot putt to save his life right now. So let's take a look. But he's Mr. PGA Championship is the thing. 26th, 1st, 55th, 2nd, 29th, 1st, 13th, 4th, 5th. So he has an amazing run at the PGA Championship over the years. And if you do the 29th, 2nd, 55, 1st, his 26th last year should lead you to believe that he's probably going to do pretty well this time around. He would be a gamble that I would be willing to take because no one wants to go down there. The problem is, let's see how he's done at the Wells Fargo Championship over the years. Not a veteran of Quail Hollow. This was 2018. He came in 42nd, and I have to confirm, I believe it was. Yes, it was at Quail Hollow that year. 2017 was the PGA Championship. We'll see how he did at that one. So those were the 2 times that he played. He was 13th at Quail Hollow last time around. Dominated tee to green, but lost 3.5 strokes on approach that time around. So that's just Brooks taking a look at it. But over the past 24, he's still up there. Bud Colley. Tyrrell Hatton is one of the bets that I have made from way earlier in the year. I bet him at 50 to 1. If you would like to bet Tyrrell Hatton, which I don't really give my strongest suggestion to, although he does rate out 5 in the long-term modeling, most of these numbers are not from this year. Only the Masters is from this year, and I bet you he was terrible in terms of that. Let's see here. Off the tee, he was great. Approach, he was great. All right, it actually wasn't all that bad for his Masters result. The around the green wasn't all that good. Didn't have specific approach stats. I mean, it's the Masters. Augusta saves all of that stuff. But, yeah, if he wins, I'm going to be happy because I'm going to win a ton of money. I have him and Hideki at 50 to 1 beyond having Bryson at 14 to 1 and 16 to 1 and Burmeister at 150 to 1 with those places. But over the past 24 rounds, he rates out well. This is just not going to be kind to any. It'll either be overly kind or not kind enough to how live guys have been doing on live and in majors so far this season. The ditto goes for the guys from the DP World Tour. Their stats are not going to be accounted for this. But guys on tour right now, Välimäki rates out really, really well. Corey Connors, Kevin Yu. Välimäki almost at any course where you can spray and pray tends to be pretty good. Now, he's hit the struggle bus a little bit over the past 2 weeks. Obviously, he didn't do all that well 2 weeks ago. And even now at the Myrtle Beach Classic, well, he is still playing. He was 40th at the CJ Cup. I mean, he doesn't do well off the tee, but if you go and take a look at his driving distance, I would wager is probably up there pretty well. Let's see, driving distance gain? No, not even all that much, honestly. But he did it at the courses where you can spray and pray. So yeah, you gained a ton at Phoenix, but in Mexico, just hit it wherever you want. You're going to be fine. Hit it wherever you want at the CJ Cup, super long course. He gained on distance there. Houston, he was just slightly below average, and that would be another one that I would throw into that bucket. But I'm not targeting Sammy Valimaki, but the numbers do support his claim. A lot of that is the great putting as well. Great iron play, great long iron play, great putting, and everything else is kind of a work in progress for him. Corey Connors, outside of driving distance and the putting stats, he's going to rate up there as well. His tee to green game has been very good. And when you go back and take a look at his PGA Championship performance, the results aren't quite there, but he was first round leader in 2021. And when Brooks won 2 years ago at Oak Hill, I believe he was second. So Corey Connors' first round leader is a look that you can most definitely take. We'll see how he ends up doing at the Cricket Club this week. But prior to the Heritage, his tee to green game has been off the charts. And he is someone that plays Bay Hill consistently well year over year. Arnold Palmer Invitational, 3rd, 18th, 21st, 11th, and 3rd. He is one of those players that is not long off the tee, but does make it up anywhere else. If he was a better putter, it would be easier to go to, but we've seen him play well in PGA Championship conditions. He usually has the one bad round that sinks him, and he can't chip and putter at any of these tournaments. But over the past 4 years, he's made the cut 3 out of 4 times, been first round leader in 2021, second after the first round in 2023. So I could see him playing well again next week, depending on the price sensitivity that you get. He fills out one of those balanced lineups a little bit more. The issue is that Connors ends up being so good week over week and being so consistent that you're probably not going to get the ownership break, even though the skill set match isn't quite there for him. My guy, Kevin Yu, hopefully can pull it out in Myrtle Beach over the weekend, wouldn't that? Unless he wants to lose to Norm Zong and we win all the money in the world, Kevin Yu would be a nice consolation coming through. I went with him at the Masters. That didn't work out very well, but maybe he does have the skill set that would play. The numbers are always going to tell you. It's a lot like Keith Mitchell. Like, I faded Keith Mitchell at the Cricket Club. We'll see how he ends up doing by the time it's over. Maybe just bet Keith Mitchell first round leader every single week. Maybe even the PGA Championship next week, bet him first round leader. But you can see with Kevin Yu, he's going to gain a bunch off the tee. He's normally going to gain on approach. Chips sometimes, putts never. So these are difficult greens. If it equalizes putting a little bit, I'm not betting Kevin Yu as an outright winner, but again, from the bottom of the DraftKings pricing as a long shot odd, he's not someone that I hate going to. I'd actually prefer him over Valimaki here if we do think that the fast and firm greens end up being somewhat of an equalizer for the bad putters, that maybe the great putters can still end up being great putters and make all those short putts. But Kevin Yu misses short putts at every course, so he's going to miss some here, but everyone else might start missing short putts as well. After him in the rankings, you got Morikawa, Berger, Cantlay, Neiman. We'll see how Neiman does. Maybe he can notch his first ever top 15 at a major championship. But it's funny to think that even over the past 24 rounds overall, that he still rates out inside the top 15 of all players, knowing that he doesn't have those super elevated performances. And outside, this goes back to after he left for LIV. So the last PGA Tour event, now this is factoring in some of his work from the playoffs in 2022. I believe he ended up playing the solo round at the Tour Championship in the final round too, because he ended up coming in last. But most of these are major championships that we're looking at for a lot of his stats, and he still rates out pretty well in that regard. Lowry, Hovland, Straka is up there. Straka is one that isn't going to light your world on fire with driving distance or around the green. He's a lot Connors-esque in that sense, but he's wildly accurate off the tee. The long irons have been amazing. He's second in approach in this field over the past 24 rounds. He's ninth from 175 to 200, a little bit worse, just above field average, 200 plus. And he's not putting as well as he normally does, but he does play the longer par threes really well. He's another one in the bucket of Corey Connors, Russell Henley. He would be another one that I would throw into this mix, where he's sort of like the anti-Keith Mitchell in that sense. And the funny one is, we take a look at, like, Keith Mitchell, 6th off the tee, 8th in driving distance. That's great. Jagger, who loves just missing left all the time, 132nd off the tee, 37th in driving distance over that time. We can even parse this out a little bit more if we wanted to. I mentioned Burmeister. He rates out number 23 in the modeling, 15th off the tee, 3rd in driving distance. The approach play has been bad in a lot of these majors, but on LIV it's actually quite good. And he's great with his long irons, and normally his around the green actually isn't all that bad. Dude just legit cannot putt to save his life, but I do like him in this tournament. Versus some of the guys that he's around, there's Hideki, he rates out number 19. You have Xander, the defending champion, and he has some like crappy off the tee stats coming in because he just hasn't been good off the tee since his return from Maryland Mansion SRD surgery back in February, but the driving distance still has not been a problem. He's still hitting the ball a mile, and if you can get away with missing fairways here, as long as it's not one of those creeks or in the middle of the woods, you should be fine. Obviously, the defending PGA champion, second at Quail Hollow a year ago. The approach play still sixth. A lot of that being that tournament at Valspar when he gained like 11 strokes on approach, but it still hasn't been bad in the same way. We have not seen his putting return to usual Xander. That's the thing I'd be worried most about, is that his putter has not returned to the elite levels that it needs to be to win major championships. He's been bad from the scoring range, from 5 to 15 feet. That's usually his bread and butter. He has not been doing that as well. Put it this way, he's been worse than JT, who's been sneakily like good on the green so far this season. Like that gets overblown to the point where it's kind of amazing. They'd be like, oh, he's so crappy at putting. Like, is he? He's gained in 4 straight, and he's gained over 4.7 strokes in 3 of his past 4. He even gained at the Masters. He had one really bad performance at Bay Hill, and it was pretty bad at Pebble Beach too. But other than that, he's been great all year on the greens. It's the off the tee that's hurting him, but if you can miss fairways here, at least in the right spot, that's not going to kill him too much because he still rates out number 38 in driving distance. I like JT a lot. If he continues to linger at beyond 20 to 1, he might be the guy for me to pair up with Bryson with my bets at the top of the board. And obviously, he's the quote-unquote the defending champion at Quail Hollow for the PGA Championship. He won here in 2017, and he's coming off a win at the Heritage. We've just had so many great winners over the past little bit that's very intriguing to think about coming into it. You see Xander, then it's Kitayama, Burmeister, and JT. Davis Riley is up there as well. Patrick Reed, Michael Kim, Ryan Gehad, Davis Thompson. As Keith mentioned, Davis Thompson and Akshay are both up there. They're 33rd and 29th in the modeling, despite the fact they don't really have the results to go along with it, which is kind of surprising. You see Akshay's a bit shorter off the tee. He's 110th in driving distance, but a very aggressive player. Russell Henley is up there as well, 141st in driving distance. Siwoo, 115th in driving distance. Now, Davis Thompson does hit the ball a mile off the tee. He's top 30 in this field in distance, but we can just see that it really hasn't been there for Davis Thompson. Like, what's been the problem? Off the tee has been pretty good, consistently good, especially at the longer courses. Approach outside of the Heritage had been very consistent, even peaking. Even at the Masters did that incredibly well. Dude can't putt. It's an issue. But we'll see how he's done at the Wells Fargo. He missed the cut in his one appearance, so he doesn't have a lot of experience there, but he has the right type of skills that you'd be looking for. Now with Akshay, he is a Wake Forest resident, so he is familiar with, especially this time of year and playing over the winter near his home, of what the Poa Travalis is like. He's been amazing on the greens for the vast majority of the season, and he's a spike player. We see this. Sometimes he gains a bunch off the tee. Sometimes he loses a bunch off the tee. Sometimes he's the best guy in the field on approach, including at Torrey Pines, at Sawgrass, 2 courses that don't really jibe with one another at all. Now, it makes sense that at Sawgrass and Harbortown you would gain a bunch, but then at Torrey Pines, really? Sometimes. So you get those spikes. Sometimes he's amazing around the green, sometimes he's not. But the putting has been consistent. He's not someone that you want to throw in any sort of safety type lineups, but he is a player that can go out and score even on hard courses. Tony Finau used to be like this a lot as well, where you'd see him on the easy holes and he would just be a disaster, but then he would just go pile up birdies on the most difficult par 4s on the course. You're like, what the hell is going on with this? So he's another one that pops up. You got Minwoo, Matt McCarty continues to play pretty good golf. Fleetwood is up there. Knapp is up there. Sergio is up there. I don't know if I can go back to him after breaking my heart so badly at the Masters. The one other thing that we can do, there are 3 separate versions of Quail Hollow in our system. So you can take a look at the PGA Championship. That's not the one that I want to do. I'm just going to apply both of the regular version of Quail Hollow into the model and take a look at the past. We'll say since, we'll do 2024. Whoops. Let's go back. Reload the page. We're trying to ask it to do a bit too much at this point in time. We have to let it load before we go into too much. So we're going to take a look at those Quail Hollow courses, and we're just going to shrink the sample size down to past 12 rounds. So the past 3 years at Quail Hollow to see how this modeling is done. Because again, this is another way to test out what is going on. That are these stats pertinent to how guys have actually performed at this course? We take a look at the model. Well, last year's 1 and 2, Rory and Xander are 1 and 2. Keith Mitchell, then Bryson then Justin Thomas end up being the top 5. We just take a look at Quail Hollow stats overall. We can see Bryson's numbers go back in time a little bit. That's 2021, 18, and 16 for him, because obviously he left for LIV, and then this wasn't necessarily a signature event until he left, so he wasn't obligated to play in it every single year. Thomas, Rose, Connors, Vegas, Gary Woodland, Tommy Fleetwood, Seamus Power is up there. I didn't realize Seamus Power was like decent at this course. He popped up in that long iron improvement play as well. So last year, very good on approach. 2023, very good on approach, and then played it there as well. I don't even know how his result. I didn't realize Seamus Power was so good at Quail Hollow. We'll see how the results were. 16th, 18th, and a missed cut for him, along with a 54th and a 13th over the years, although in 2022 he was played at the Avenel Farms. Yeah, so that one doesn't count towards it. So his past 3 at Quail Hollow, he has made the cut, including consecutive top 20s. Overall, if we take a look at how brother Seamus Power and Associates have been playing over the past little bit, badly. 8th at the Valspar. I think he was off to a hot start at Myrtle Beach. Not that I would really care about that. Although Sundog is actually at Myrtle Beach. He described it as sort of a mini Valspar, a mini Copperhead, a less hard Copperhead, which I thought was a really intriguing comp for Myrtle Beach. Just keep that in the back of your mind for next year. Other guys who rate out really well: Vegas, Fleetwood, there's Seamus Power, Neiman, Berger, Scott, Sergio once again, Hideki, Clark. Hideki's another guy. Hideki won here, right? I'm not misremembering that. Maybe he screwed it up and didn't win, but he won it. He would be another one to add to that list. No, he doesn't have a Wells Fargo win. I don't know why I thought that he did. I think that maybe he gassed it on one of these. I'm getting all the tournaments mixed up in my mind now, but I thought that he had won Riv and Quail Hollow. I guess I was mistaken in that regard. Wyndham Clark, Max Homa, 2 guys who have championships at this course. You have Phil and Keegan. Day has a win here, although that dates back a very long time. And you can just see how they got it done. Let's see the driving distance guys, best in the field from just this course: Rory, Bryson, Mitchell, Cam Young, Ben Ann, Woodland, Dustin Johnson. So the next thing that I want to do is go back and take a longer version sample of what we were talking about earlier on. Let's just break this down a little bit into distance, short game, maybe distance and putting is another one we can look at. Driving and putting. This is one that we looked at last week for the Cricket Club for that very wet day on Friday, and the Bombers were the ones who ended up doing well. So it's driving distance, putting, fairways, minimized a little bit, and long approach play. So you got Bryson, Keith Mitchell, Rory, Phil, Gary Woodland is your top 5. Xander, Vegas, Cam Young, Sergio Day rounding out the top 10. And this is just past 12 rounds when we're looking at it, by the way. Now, we probably want to take a look at the longer term approach. Let's say past 75 rounds. So we get out a bit more of the noise. I want to take a look at this for 450 to 500 yard longer hard holes as well. We go past 75. Rory, Phil, Glover, all of a sudden. He's a Glover lover. I didn't realize Glover was so long off the tee. That's surprising to me. Oh, it's because I'm only looking at Quail Hollow. That's why. Pat, you got to remember that it says at the top what filters are on. Modeling rank on this: Bryson, Grazerman, Rahm, Rory, Ludwig. So Rory, as a JT versus Ludwig, is probably going to be my final decision of the week, just because the long-term numbers really support Ludwig. He just got a win at Torrey Pines, plays these long courses really, really well, great with his long irons, and he's one of the more accurate long players off the tee. You see, like the Bombers, you got Bryson, Grazerman, Rahm, Rory, Xander. They're all outside the top 15 in terms of fairways gained. They're all inside the top 15 in driving distance. Then you take a look at Ludwig, who's 15th in driving distance, top 50 in accuracy. You got Scotty, is top 12 in accuracy, but 64th in driving distance. There's very few long players who hit the ball as straight as Ludwig. Sort of the discount version is actually Victor, 57th in driving, 59th in accuracy, and great with his long irons. But other than that, you're going to be hard-pressed. Spieth is 33rd in driving distance, 32nd in fairways. Spieth's sneaky long. People forget about this. And other than that, that's it. That's really it when you start taking a look at the accuracy players who are up there. Davis Thompson would actually be the next closest one, and then it would be Sergio. You got a distance to accuracy ratio of 44 to 29 for Davis Thompson, and then 35 to 43 for Sergio Garcia. Those are the guys who hit the ball a ton and still have a bunch of distance. Keegan would be the other one, but as we mentioned before, his long-term, his lack of improvement. It's going the other way from beyond 200 yards this year over last year, but he does rate out pretty well for some of these guys. So that's how it looks over the past 75 rounds overall in just the big drivers, putting, and long iron play. So the three things that mattered the most, those are the three things. And again, it spits out Bryson as number one, Grazerman, Rahm, Rory, and Ludwig at the top. And you still have long-term Xander and Scotty right behind him. Minwoo is right there as well, as is Sam Burns, Thorbjornsen, and EVR. We saw EVR with one of the better improvements in the long iron play. I do like Thorbjornsen again. I do think that we're starting to see that maybe he's a bit underqualified to play against the best players right now at this version of time. Hey, there's Burmeister. He's number 16. There's Hatton. He's number 15. Maybe I wasn't crazy at all. Maybe long-term I need to go with the guys who historically would rate out well at the scores. But we've seen Thorbjornsen excel against weaker fields, has not done any damage in his career yet against any of the very strong fields so far. Back to the model that we had built out for Quail Hollow. And now we're going to look at it past 75 rounds to see if it gives us any intriguing names near the top that are a bit different. Past 75, it's the top three again. Scotty, Bryson, Rory, Xander, Rahm, Ludwig, Hideki, Neiman, Mitchell. Mitchell keeps coming back. I worry. The stats told me I should have played him this week because he had rated out second in the modeling. Didn't use him because he terrifies me. Then all of a sudden, he's the 36-hole leader because, of course, that's how it happens. But then you have Hatton, Kitayama, Brooks, Colin, Dustin, Spawn. Okay. Michael Kim, Bobby Mack, Kevin, you once again, Victor, Thomas, Pendrith, McNeely, Grazerman, Fleetwood, Minwoo, Berger, Connors, Davis Thompson, Seamus Power. We're seeing a lot of similar names pop up again. EVR, Straka, Smalley, Cantlay, Woodland, Bud Colley takes a big hit. Henley takes a big hit, but Burns and Rye are still there. Nikolai, Thorbjornsen, Keegan, and Andrew Novak are all inside the top 45 of this. But here's what I wanted to look at more than anything. Let's find out past 75 rounds who the leaders in driving distance are. Bryson, Rory, Minwoo, Burmeister, Ben-An. Those are your top five. Vegas, Thor, Cam Young, Mitchell, Woodland. Then you got Rahm, Clark, Nicholas Norgard, Moeller, Rasmus Højgaard, Ludwig, Max, Grazerman, Nikolai Højgaard, Knapp, Neiman, Dustin, Pendrith, Kitayama. Those are the names at the top. Then you have Brooks. So long-term, these guys continue to persist. And over that time frame, Bryson is the best player from beyond 200 yards with his irons in the field. If that happens this week, he's going to win. It's not even going to be close. But I do think that it is going to be close. We'll take a look at, what was the other one? Long par fours. Who's the best player? It is Scotty, Rory, and Bryson. 1, 2, 3 par fours, 400 to 450 yards. This shouldn't be new. Now we have to start finding the outliers. As I mentioned before, who are those long shots that you like? Now, Nick Taylor rates out horribly, except for on longer par fours. He plays those incredibly well. Berger is up there too. Henley is there. McNeely, Keegan, Ludwig once again. I wonder how popular Ludwig is going to be this week in terms of the betting market, in terms of DraftKings, only because there's going to be a want. I think Bryson's going to be the most popular bet this week, but people are going to dump their money onto Rory. He's like Mr. Quail Hollow. I think Scotty is the overlooked one from those top three, but then you'll start talking yourselves into other guys, be it JT, Xander, and a lot of it will have to do on the performance of guys and how they do in Philly this week. But if Ludwig kind of stumbles a little bit, comes T29, something like that, we just saw him pop out of nowhere really at the Masters. Not out of nowhere. He had won a signature event at Torrey Pines earlier this year, but you get those firm and fast green. His putting has been immaculate, and he still long-term has the proper skill set that we want, that we do see drift on his number. And it goes from 16 to 18 to 22 to 25. Then he probably ends up becoming the bet for me. And we've talked about Quail Hollow being the breakthrough spot for a lot of people over time, that maybe that works for a breakthrough at a major championship. JT did it 8 years ago. Why not Ludwig, as a young man, to break through at Quail Hollow at the PGA Championship as well? More guys who do very well and maybe that you wouldn't be thinking about. Joe Highsmith is up there. Justin Thomas is there as well, as is Hatton, Reed, Connors, and Hideki. So again, my guys play hard course as well. That's what I want to see. The final thing that I want to look at on Fantasy National, we're just going to go to general strokes gain. Loaded my strokes gain modeling. Gives us all the basic stuff that we see. Total, whatever it might be. I want to see past 24 rounds. And I want to see over 7,400 yards. Where are we at here? Over 7,400 yards. And I want to see difficult relative to par. 100% of the rounds of this course play difficult relative to par. Then we're going to take an average of the past 24 rounds and see who the best total is. Scotty, Rory, Ludwig, Henley, Xander. Bryson probably doesn't have, Bryson, a lot of his date back well, but he's still inside the top 12. After those top 5, Xander, Reed, Connors, Novak, Gerard, Bryson, Stevens, Matt McCarty, although Matt McCarty only has 3 rounds to qualify. Sam Stevens only has 10. Ryan Gerard only has 6. Andrew Novak only has 13 because these are their first run as decent players in major championships. Matt Wallace, Denny, Rahm, Wacky, Valimaki, my guy, Rico Hoey. There's Cam Smith. Morikawa, Kuchar, Homa, Hatton, Hideki, Siwoo, Neiman, Lowry, Fleetwood, Grazerman, Sungjae, and Dustin Johnson. Dietrich pops up there as well. Dietrich's interesting because he has no form to speak of whatsoever. But he does have a win earlier this year, obviously in Phoenix. Has been pretty bad ever since. But if you take a look at his PGA Championship, 4th a year ago, you take a look at his U.S. Open. 14th a year ago, you take a look at his Open Championship under the Open. 13th a year ago. So his major championship performance actually hasn't been all that bad, which is really intriguing to see and not normally what you would expect. The only other thing that I would look at, and you probably don't need to look at it, I just think it's fun to go look at, is we have the filters down in the left-hand corner for region of the country. So you can see, do it by states. We're going to go to Georgia and North and South Carolina and see what pops up for us. North Carolina, South Carolina, if you wanted to put in Florida, maybe you could, although I do think it's a little bit different, although you would increase your sample size so much more in that regard. So we'll just throw in the rounds from those 3 places, and we'll just shrink it down, take a look at an average. I'm not going to let this really factor in too much. I always find it's fun to look at these things. You got Rory, Xander, Scotty, Hatton, and Ludwig as your top 5. With those states only. Now, a lot of that is the Masters. You have Sea Island. Obviously, Ludwig has a win there. You have the Wyndham Championship. You have Quail Hollow, Myrtle Beach. What else do we have? Is there anything else in North Carolina? I'm sure that I'm missing something else. You have some of the major championships. You would have had Pinehurst from a year ago as well. Patrick Fishburne, Ben Griffin, Rahm, Reed, Hughes, Henley, Morikawa, Bryson, Berger, Cantlay, Fleetwood, Hideki. You also have Davis Thompson. Davis Thompson keeps popping up and making appearances in here when we keep taking a look at the more in-depth stats. That was the preview for the PGA Championship. I hope you learned a little bit. I hope you sub to fantasynational.com/Mayo in order to get yourself 20% off. Once again, the odds were all provided by coolbet.com. They're doing a Cabot giveaway right now as well. If you want to win a trip to the great Cabot courses, Cabot Links and Cabot Cliffs, I play them every year. They are some of the world's best courses. All expenses paid. Trip for 4, I believe it is, on CoolBet. You can hit that link down in the description right now if you want to go opt in to that contest. Code SPORTS200 will help you out there as well if you want to get a deposit bonus if you're a first-time player at CoolBet. And Underdog, code Mayo will get you a deposit bonus of up to $1,000, and you'll get a free pick in the Pick'em game for the PGA Championship. I'll be back on Monday with Cust and Geoff breaking down the odds board. Cam and a special guest on Tuesday for the Best Bet Show. Tambo on Wednesday morning for DraftKings, all of the final plays. And I'll be taking your questions on Wednesday evening as well. You smash like, you sub to the channel, leave a rating and review on the audio while you're here, and do all of the things I asked for the comment section as well, because we can crowdsource this together to figure out some of the ownership and popular bets this week. But it takes a village in order to figure that out. So please go comment right now. If you want the player-by-player preview, it's already out on the pod feeds and on Mayo Media Network. I'm Pat Mayo. Good luck this week. See you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!